Hey, Shalom, Yasharala, peace be unto the nation of Israel, Humad they so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and speckled Israelites, being Israelite foreigners scattered across the four corners of the earth, including within America, Babylon, the great, the main place of our captivity. We are the Most High, Yahweh's chosen people of the nation of Israel. So without further ado, as always, I'm going to face the east, all right? Give all praise, glory, infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who is the God of the living, and the Lashon Kadash, meaning the Holy Tongue, is in the Paleo Hebrew, meaning the ancient Hebrew. Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Baruch Kadash, meaning all praise to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, and the Holy Spirit, who is our strength and our Redeemer, and our light and our salvation. In the same tongue, Ma'adamashana Kabodium, Lahasaquanium, Shal Gadawarakab, many double honors to the apostles and elder bishops, of great millstone, for teaching really well, and Shalom on salutations to by Yashadawada, meaning the house of David, of the one-third elect remnant of the nation of Israel, along with the rest of the one-third elect men, women, and children of Israel, scattered across the four corners of the earth. All right, so fellow servant Malak Rayab, back at it again with another lesson through the spirit of prophecy, being a testimony of our Lord and Savior, Hamashaka Hawashai, who the master of the world, ignorantly refers to Jesus Christ. All right. So before I go ahead and continue, I'm going to go ahead and test the video and audio. All right, everything's good. All right. So this lesson is entitled I.C.E. All right, which is an acronym for Immigrations of Customs Enforcement. Okay, is targeting documented U.S. citizens. Um, is a beginning phase of civil war. All right. All right. So once again, this lesson is entitled I.C.E. targeting quote unquote documented U.S. citizens is of beginning phases of civil war. Okay. All right. Going into the prophecy of the sedition amongst men um, in Second Ezra 15 and 16, specifically, centered around the sedition, of the wicked, tyrannical, corrupt government of America, Babylon the Great. Okay. Predicated off of the ideals of so-called white supremacy, which is Edomite supremacy, right? How these Edomites, these self-proclaimed white people, okay, continue to reign supreme, through terrorizing the world, okay, off of these white supremacist ideals, specifically, predicated off of, so-called white supremacy, which is Edomite supremacy, all right, going into justifying, seizing the world's resources, um, justifying, the transition of this current monetary system over to this new totalitarian dystopian technocracy, which requires, this orchestrated collapse of this current state of America, Babylon the Great, including the economy of the U.S. America, Babylon the Great, which is plummeting as we speak. Of the U.S. debt being well over $38 trillion in debt. Okay, in the midst of uh, the Lord Yahweh Shemashah bringing this cold front, okay, this winter storm into many states of America, Babylon the Great, across the coast of America, Babylon the Great, another plague, okay, and amongst other, plagues, of end time prophecy that further indicates the end of America, Babylon the Great, okay, especially civil war, all right, to justify for the devil to justify transitioning his current monetary system over to this new totalitarian dystopian technocracy, where everyone's lives is regulated through that MOTB, that chip, in Revelation 13 verses 16 and 18. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring out several articles and a few videos. All right, so I got quite a bit to bring out. So I don't write this, which means Lord willing, I'm gonna go ahead and make this as quick and concise as possible. Try to keep it around an hour and bring this information out relatively quickly and concisely once again within a a good or a decent time frame. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. All right, before I go ahead and bring out this information. All right, and Adam Ratazah, meaning Lord willing, is before the edifying is ordered to elect. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start off with this first article. So on medium.com, not enough, it's called Medium, which is a witchcraft term. But it says, study, the United States is now officially in first phase of civil war. It says, according to experts at University of Pennsylvania, the civil war split not by territory, but by ideology. And it's really that pro-white ideology, which is Edomite supremacy. All right. Further, uncovering, the true nature of the self-proclaimed white man to steal, murder, and destroy, as it says in St. John 10 and 10. All right, which is part of his modus operandi, okay, or his track record. So it says in October 2024, a team at the University of Pennsylvania Center for Ethics and the Rule of Law, CERL, ran a tabletop exercise simulating how a modern American Civil War might begin. The scenario was chillingly specific. Our president orders a highly unpopular federal law enforcement operation in a major city. Local officials resist, courts freeze, federal agents clash with state authorities. The exercise, led by Professor Claire Finkelstein, was meant as a warning. By January 2026, it had become a blueprint for reality. Okay, because prophecy is reality. All right, and these secular events that we speak about, past, present, and future, filtered through biblical prophecy. Okay, so everything that's unfolding right now, okay, was predestinated, okay, or in this case, rather preordained, to unfold in these last days, in these perilous times we're living in, within the final hours of Esau, Edom's rulership, the man of sin and son of perdition, meaning destruction. Okay, the self-proclaimed white man. So it says in that exercise, a president carried out a highly unpopular law enforcement operation, resulting in an armed conflict between state and federal forces. Claire Finkelstein of the University of Pennsylvania stated. So let's go ahead and jump around, let's get straight down to the point. It says on January 7, 2026, Minneapolis became ground zero. ICE agents deployed as unprecedented numbers as part of Operation Metro Surge fatally shot Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old citizen, mother, and poet. She was unarmed, sitting in her car, when an agent fired 3 times, hitting her in the chest, forearm, and head. All right, let's go ahead and continue. This meaning what? Minneapolis, Minnesota specifically, has become ground zero, or a testing ground, further testing ground of martial law, okay, by Esau Edom, okay, inciting carnality, okay, through the enforcement of, um, these quote unquote mass deportation, covert ICE raids within these particular areas in America, Babylon the Great. And that's stirring, that's actually bringing up, or stirring up a lot of controversy and mayhem within these U.S. citizens, because their rights, or so-called rights, are being infringed upon, including the First and Second Amendments, which I'll get into momentarily within this lesson. But continuing on this article, let me see here. It says the atmosphere in Minneapolis is not theoretical. 3,000 federal immigration agents now patrol the streets, vastly outnumbering local police. Businesses have closed, schools shut down. Protesters clash daily with federal forces, chanting ICE out as they demand an end to what they call an occupation 23, 26, 27. And that lines up with 2nd Ezra 9, all right, specifically in the 3rd verse. Speaks about, protests, okay, going into violent uprisings and so forth, okay. All right, so we're within that time, man. Matter of fact, let me get that real quick. 2nd Ezra 9, let's start from the top. Salakia. So this is 2nd Ezra chapter 9, and we'll start from the top. All right, and it reads, he answered me then and said, measure now the time diligently in itself. And when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, will begin to visit the world which he made. Here's the point of verse 3. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, which we're witnessing these uproars of the people in the world, right? Especially on a national level, through these anti-ICE raids, Customs and Border Patrol raids, and so forth. Okay, and even on a global level, okay, regarding these protests against these regimes that oppose the Western philosophy of America, Babylon the Great, okay, which a lot of those protests are set up by George Soros through his Open Societies Foundation, okay, which means what? More provoked chaos by Esau Edom of his Hegelian dialectic, order out of chaos. Okay, either way, this is all prophecy that's unfolding. So says the 2nd Ezra 9 and 4, then shalt that will understand that the Most High, Yahweh by Shem Shai, spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning, because he's the ancient of all days. All right, he says, he told us as before these things spring forth, I tell you of them. All right, Second Ezra 9:5. For like as all that is made in the world had the beginning and an end, and the end is manifest. The end is being manifested through biblical prophecy. Okay, end time biblical prophecy. Verse 6. Even so, the times also the highest, Yahweh by Shem Shai, have plain beginnings, excuse me, and wonders and powerful works, and endings and effects and signs. And that's what we're witnessing these last days. Okay, these end time prophecies of the Lord Yahweh by Shem Shai's will to ultimately bring forth the destruction of America, Babylon the Great. All right. So continuing on, this article says people in our neighborhood have been terrorized by ICE for 6 weeks. Minneapolis resident, January 2026. All right, because ICE is abandoned, the quote unquote initial task of targeting undocumented immigrants / migrants. Okay, within a so-called war on illegal immigrants. Okay. Now, ironically, they've done anything but continue to abide by that agenda, and as of recently, within these, as of recently, for quite some time now, they've been actually targeting the opposite crowd, or which are these documented U.S. citizens. Okay, those who have legitimate U.S. citizenship, and they're terrorizing them, detaining them specifically through racial profiling, which they hide through bureaucratic speech, such as the whole false notion or so-called notion of fitting the democratic or the fitting the particular demographic profile. Okay, I mean, I've actually experienced that myself about 13 years ago. And I was walking, my chariot, my vehicle had broke down, and I had on dress clothes. So long story short, I'm walking up the hill by the university, and I get stopped by these damn modern day Roman centurions, these cops, and they demand that I show them ID and have me sit on the curb and so forth. And the reason that they said that they were supposedly stopping me, or they had supposedly stopped me, was because I supposedly fit the description of somebody robbing a store nearby. So what does that mean? They were racially profiling me. So that's what these devils do. Esau's law enforcement agencies and his paramilitary are doing. Okay, now what does paramilitary mean? Let's go and look that up real quick. All right. Paramilitary is an unofficial force organized similarly to a military force, and that's what ICE is. Okay, they're an unofficial force. Okay, operating on behalf of the mass deportation agenda of DJT. Okay, and a lot of them, okay, are not legitimate. Um, a lot of them are not a part of a legitimate task force, which I'm gonna get into, momentarily. Okay, a lot of these individuals, it's been revealed, a lot of these individuals, okay, have the capability, or have been, you know, um, benefiting off the capability of ordering, ICE gear, such as, the little silky ski mask type of, covering, face covering, where that covers the forehead and the mouth area of the head, and or which is only like $4, okay, for the most part on Amazon, and then as well as a vest, okay, we're renting around $30, okay, so a lot of these right wing MAGA recipients or supporters, which are predominantly Edomites, okay, are ordering this gear and perpetrating to be ICE agents. So that's what further confirms that ICE is a paramilitary. It's an unofficial force organized similarly to a military force, okay, operating on behalf of the agenda of this current presidential administration in the U.S. to target a specific demographic of people that has always been targeted, that these Edomites despise. Because why? Why are they embarking on this mission of transitioning from supposedly targeting undocumented citizens, okay, which are so-called migrants / immigrants, to targeting and terrorizing documented U.S. citizens with legitimate legal U.S. citizenship? Why? Because this is a part of Esau's ethnic cleansing, okay, masqueraded through racial profiling. All right. So this is all they're doing. All right. Further showing the horns regarding, through their hatred, filtered through their hatred for the descendants of Jacob. And that's so-called Negro, Latino, Native American Indians, man. So it says goods. So it says goods deletion was the ninth time since September 2025 the ICE agents opened fire on civilians in 5 states and Washington D.C. 4 others have died in similar encounters. The pattern is clear. ICE is not just enforcing immigration law; it is waging a campaign of intimidation and violence, okay, against that targeted demographic of people, so-called Negroes and Indigenous, of the respective tribes of Israel, through the southern and the northern kingdoms of the lost hill tribes of Israel. Okay, this is madness right here. I'm not even going to read this. I'm just going to highlight it. Okay, here's madness. I'm gonna enlarge it so you can read it, man. There's a report out of Fort Bliss, Texas. The migrant detention facility, which is the biggest in America, battling grade down here, um, in El Paso. All right, on the Fort Bliss military base. All right, you see what it says here. Okay, so I'm going to minimize it. I'm going to highlight the information mentioned in that banner. All right, you read this madness. All right, you read what is highlighted in blue. I might just read it and paraphrase some of these terms. So the violence in Minneapolis is not an aberration. Across the country, ISIS tactics have grown increasingly sadistic and systematic. Detained immigrants at the Fort Bliss detention camp in El Paso, Texas, have reported officers crushing their stones. During beatings, a tactic used to coerce compliance or punish resistance. One man described how an officer grabbed his stones and firmly crushed him, leaving him with lasting injury and hearing loss from fingers forced in his ears. Now, this is madness. Okay, um, so that's one sadistic and heinous report. Another, several others within these within that concentration camp that they call a migrant detention facility over there, down here in Fort Bliss on the military base, is raping women. So I'm gonna get into that momentarily, man. Okay, so all this wickedness is being exposed, okay, through Esau's paramilitary. All right, um, sexual abuse is rampant, and I'll get back to that in a moment. I'll get back to that section of the article to dive more into that. But I'm gonna go ahead and segue to the next article on a news break entitled "Another Shutdown Likely After ICE Deletions in Minnesota Prompt Revolt by Democrats." Why? Because the the um, the government shutdown deadline is on January 30th, which is this Friday. Okay, now because these further violent uprisings by this paramilitary, Trump's paramilitary known as ICE, and even the cups of border patrol agents, okay, mass deleting documented legal U.S. citizens. They're looking to further justify shutting the government down, which is all a part of Esau's Hegelian dialectic. So it says that the deletion of a second U.S. citizen by federal agents in Minneapolis is deeply complicating efforts to avert another government shutdown in Washington, as Democrats and some Republicans view the episode as a tipping point in a debate over the Trump administration's immigration enforcement policies. All right, says since Democrats pledged to block funding for the Department of Homeland Security unless changes are made to rein in the federal agency's operations following the deletion of Alex Preti, a 37-year-old intensive care unit nurse, which was a VA nurse, by the way, okay, affiliated with the military, says Senate Democrats pledged to block funding for the Department of Homeland Security unless changes are made to rein in the federal agency's operations following the deletion of Alex Preti, a 37-year-old intensive care unit nurse. All right. So says go ahead and jump down. Says Senate Democrats have made clear we are ready to quickly advance the 5 appropriations bills separately from the DHS funding bill before the January 30 deadline. The responsibility to prevent a partial government shutdown is on Leader Thune and Senate Republicans, Schumer said. The standoff also revealed fractures among GOP lawmakers who called for a federal and state investigation into the shooting and congressional hearings for federal officials to explain their tactics, demands that have put unusual pressure on the Trump administration. Senate Republicans must secure 60 votes to advance the spending measure in the chamber, a threshold they cannot reach on their own with their 53 seats. The job is further complicated by a time crunch. Lawmakers have until midnight Friday, to reach a compromise or face a partial government shutdown. All right. So yeah, they reported, the Senate Democrats have made clear that they're ready to quickly advance the five appropriations bills to essentially um, defund the DHS, regarding the whole, violent uprisings that the ICE has been bringing forth, and these other federal agents, such as Customs and Border Patrol agents, have been bringing on documented legal U.S. citizens. So in other words, they're using this whole um, paramilitary invasion by these federal agents on behalf of this current U.S. presidential administration to justify shutting down the government. Okay. Now, one hand is watching the other, so you have one political party, certain members of one political party that may support shutting down the government, and then the other represents the contrary. Okay, or so either way, on Rataza, they ended up coming to a consensus to shut this shit down on the 30th, because the last time they shut the government down was on October 1st of 2025 for 43 days, up until around November 13th, when they passed legislation to reopen it. And that's around the time where Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, on behalf of Elon, was doing the further dirty work of DJT on behalf of the Zionist bankers, all right, to diminish a lot of these federal jobs, including proud ass TSA workers. Okay, so Adam Ratazar, man, it happens on the 30th, but either way, whether it happens on the 30th or not, which we do is just serve another federal government shutdown. The actual government shutdown, the government, the U.S. government in general, will completely shut down. Okay, all right. By the way that things are, the way that things are transpiring, okay, to further fulfill biblical prophecy, because before Esau even can make this chip mandatory, the MOTB, they need um, this collapse of this U.S. economy. So all the proverbial puzzle pieces are in place for the collapse of America, Babylon the Great, which is why they're inciting such violence, because they need to justify shutting this place down. All right. So Senate Democrats already expressed reservations about supporting the Homeland Security funding after Renee Good, a mother of three, was shot and deleted this month by federal agents in Minneapolis. But Preddy's killing led Democrats to be more forceful in their opposition. All right, so let's go and jump down a bit. Senator Adam Schiff, the Democratic Party out of California, said Sunday he would oppose funding for the agencies involved in the Minneapolis operations, including immigration and customs enforcement and border protection. As I quote him, excuse me, I'm not giving ICE or Border Patrol another dime, given how these agencies are operating. Democrats are not going to fund that, he said in an interview with NBC's Meet the Press. I think anyone who votes to give them more money to do this will share in responsibility and see more Americans die in our cities as a result. So he's representing the voice of Democrats, the left wing, to defund ICE to try to get them off the streets. Okay, a lot of these politicians have been voicing how ICE is not helping minimize violence, but do the contrary, and to increase it by inciting it. So, going to segue to this next article on Newsbreak. Christy Nome, all right, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, Botox Christie, says Americans should be prepared to prove their citizenship as ICE intensifies nationwide raids. Targeted enforcement can include ID checks. See, so this further confirms that they've been targeting documented legal U.S. citizens, man. All right. Specifically those of Jake. So this is a similar article. So on KRQE News, it says, Corbin, nothing wrong with ICE asking citizenship questions. All right, so jump down and bring out a synopsis of this article. And I'm going to go rapid fire style with these articles because I got quite a bit of information. All right. So it says, reported out of this is U.S. Senator John Cornyn, okay, of the Republican Party of El Paso, Texas, says he's not opposed to oversight of federal immigration detention facilities nor investigations into the recent deaths of detainees. But he blames the Biden administration for pre, precipitating a chaotic illegal immigration situation current federal officials are trying to sort out. So essentially, what he's saying is he's blaming this whole quote unquote border crisis slash migrant surge issue on the open border policies of Biden, okay, the former president, okay. So meaning what? He's co-signing this concentration camp down here in El Paso, the biggest in America, Babylon Great, in Fort Bliss, okay, to house Jake, okay, whether they're documented or not. This is essentially what he's saying in encrypted speech, man. All right, these politicians like to talk with a forked tongue, especially these Edomites, because that's their track record. As it says in Psalm 55 and 21. Okay, how he speak smooth words like butter, but hide the war in his tongue. Okay, meaning what? This devil has an ulterior motive where he acts like he has the best interest, of people. The U.S. citizens of America, Babylon the Great, especially Jake, but his actions prove otherwise. Okay, through his immoral decrees and draconian measures. Okay, his carnal, invasions of Jake neighborhoods and so forth. All right, so says Chrissy Nolan was dealt hammer blow live on Fox News as Trump lawyer trashes claim Minneapolis victim Alex Preddy was domestic terrorist. All right. So if you oppose this paramilitary known as ICE, specifically ICE, by either videotaping them or recording them, um, agonizing them or doing anything that they would deem to be agonizing behavior, all right, including being seen in their presence within their vicinity with an unconcealed weapon, despite the fact that that's not a violation of the constitutional rights, specifically through the Second Amendment. Okay, they can deem you a domestic. They could deem said individuals as domestic terrorists. All right. So it says top ranks of the federal government are turning on Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem in her defense of the deletion of Alex Preddy in Minneapolis by an ICE agent over the weekend. And federal immigrant Slovakia looks cited. And federal immigration agents agreed with some of the criticism of their top boss. So meaning what? A lot of these federal agents are turning on Botox Christie, okay? The DHS security, the DHS secretary, okay? So was further exposing her incompetence and tyranny, corruption, okay, on behalf of this current administration. So it says President DJT, uh, President DJT's favorite network, Fox News, grilled Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche on Monday over reports of the internal frustrations on DHS messaging in the wake of the horrific shooting of the 37-year-old VA nurse. All right, jump down. Says Fox and Friends host Griff Jenkins confronted Attorney General Pam Bondi's number two on whether he agreed that Preddy's actions amounted to the legal definition of domestic terrorism like Noam claimed. All right. And he said, look, I don't think anybody thinks that they were comparing what happened on Saturday to a legal definition of domestic terrorism. Blanche finally replied after trying to deflect the question by criticizing Minnesota's Democratic leadership. And you're right, he said, to the extent there's body cam or other videos that witnesses are still providing to us. So I'm not describing it as anything except for tragedy, he added. Noam said at a Saturday press conference, when you perpetuate violence against the government because of ideological reasons and for reasons to resist and perpetuate violence, that is the definition of domestic terrorism. Now, she was really gearing that comment towards this recent 37-year-old VA nurse, Alex Preddy, who got put to death by ICE. But when you watch the video evidence contradicts her claims, okay, that he was exhibiting domestic terrorism activity, okay, but rather exercising his First and Second Amendment rights. All right, further, expose these devils to be hypocrites, man. So this is on also a news break. Says DJT blames ICE shooting victim Alex Preddy for his own death after carrying fully loaded GUN blicky to protest. All right, let's jump down. Says DJT strongly implied that Alex Preddy, the second fatal ICE shooting victim in a month, made his bed by protesting with a fully loaded blicky on him. Speaking of Wall Street Journal reporter Josh Dawsey on Sunday, January 25th, one day after the ICU nurse, age 37, was shot, deleted by a federal border patrol agent in Minnesota, the president sidestepped Dawsey's question of whether the officer was right and blamed Preddy for carrying a firearm. This is what Trump said. I don't like it when somebody goes into a protest and he's got a very powerful, fully loaded blicky with two magazines loaded up with bullets. Also, Trump declared that doesn't play good either. Well, this further exposed that statement further exposes the hypocrisy of these devils. Because what happened to the Second Amendment right of the U.S. Constitution? And on top of that, there's at least 29 out of the 50 states in America, Babylon the Great, that permits open, permitless gun laws. So even out of the 29 states of the 50 states in America, Babylon the Great, that permits open, permitless gun laws, meaning those 29 states, those minimum 29 states, do not require a permit to carry a concealed weapon. Okay, even in the states that requires a permit, their rights to carry according to Esau's Constitution is still protected under the Second Amendment rights. So, but DJT is acting like the Second Amendment is not intact. Why? Because these devils are hypocrites, man. All right, they're truce breakers. It says in Psalm 55:20. All right. So so let's go ahead and segue over to this video. Fair use.
Our teams have been reviewing video of Saturday's deadly shooting. CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Skanga has a breakdown of the events as seen from various angles of witness footage, and we want to warn you, the images are disturbing.
About 2 minutes before the shooting, Alex Preddy is seen arguing with officers. One officer pushes him back, and an individual is detained as Preddy's argument with officers continues. Preddy, holding a cell phone, was allegedly there as an observer to document what was happening. About a minute later, Preddy is seen standing in the street, filming, directing a car past him. An officer then approaches another apparent observer and pushes her. She moves to Preddy and holds him by the waist, and the officer approaches and pushes Preddy. A second woman walks over. The officer pushes her to the ground, then sprays Preddy with a chemical irritant. Preddy raised.
Okay, so far, what Chrissy Nome and DJT have been advocating that this individual, 37-year-old Alex Preddy, the former ICU VA nurse, was perpetuating violence by exhibiting domestic terrorism activity when this video evidence says otherwise. Okay, where he was recording these ICE agents, okay, with these other protesters around him, including these women. Okay, then he walked across the street around the vicinity of these women. Then, and as you see on the camera, in the video footage, the ICE agents proceed to enforce the will on those women, and push them down to the ground and whatnot, man. Push them, in which they ended up losing balance and whatnot, falling down. All right, and then they antagonize him. They approach him in a violent manner. All right, so far, this goes against what DJT and Christian Nome were saying, or that they were claiming. All right,
raises his hands to
block. So essentially means they were lying, blatantly lying to the public. All right,
block the spray. Preddy and the first woman then move to assist the woman who was knocked down.
Okay, and on
top
top
of that,
the
officer continues to spray. Several more officers are.
So they pushed the women. They pushed Preddy. Then they pepper sprayed him. For what? What was he doing? In their minds, these ICE agents, that he was antagonizing them. All right.
Arrive and drag Preddy onto the ground. An officer in gray reaches into the struggle and comes out holding a gun that appears to match a photo of a gun released by the Department of Homeland Security. In this video, obtained by CBS News, you can clearly see the gun being removed from Preddy's waist by the officer. The first shot is fired about 1 second later. Slowed to a quarter speed, you can see and hear how quickly the shot follows the gun's removal. In another angle, you can see an agent watch as the gun is removed from Preddy's waistband before the agent pulls his own gun and fires at the kneeling Preddy.
Okay, so they literally tackled him to the ground. They confiscated his weapon for whatever reason. Okay. Then after they confiscated his weapon, not justifiably, they fired their own weapon. So that this was a cold-blooded, calculated assassination in broad daylight. Now, another thing too, the fact that this guy Alex Preddy, okay, was 37 years old, as well as Renee Good, seems suspect. And the guy was, flaunting agent, appeared to be, flaunting agent attire, so we know what Esau, likes to rely on the psyops to, these orchestrated psyops, okay, with these crisis actors and agent provocateurs and whatnot. Either way, a lot of these U.S. citizens don't know anything about that, and they look at this as a legitimate public assassination. So they're still going to react, okay, in a way in which, uh, it would lead into sedition, by violent uprising against Esau's government, okay, due to a lack of so-called justice and fairness and and sincerity, okay, which Esau lacks because he's a devil. He's not capable of being righteous. It says in Habakkuk 2 and 4 how his soul is not lifted up right in him. All right. So we're going to continue a little bit, a few more seconds of this video.
The officers move away from Preddy as at least one of them continues to fire. Preddy does not appear to be moving.
All right. So you hear the women screaming and whatnot because they executed the guy. All right. It's also on Newsbreak. It says MAGA podcaster declares civil war and brands Trump weak. So now the right wing that's supposed to be pro-Trump are turning on DJT. Says MAGA podcaster declares civil war and brands Trump weak after ICU nurse shot deleted. A popular MAGA podcast appears to have turned on DJT in the wake of the second fatal shooting of a U.S. citizen by federal officers in weeks. Right-wing political commentator Tim Pool declared a civil war and branded the president weak as he questioned the Trump administration's narrative surrounding the death ICU nurse Alex Jeffrey Preddy, age 37, a U.S. citizen who had no criminal record, was shot deleted by the U.S. Border Patrol officer on Saturday while protesting Trump's immigration crackdown in his city following the January 7th deletion of Renee Good by an immigration and customs officer. All right. Now, go ahead and get this first precept in St. Mark 3, verses 23 to 24 in the NLT. All right. All right, so we'll type this in. St. Mark. All right, I'm going to get this in the NLT. All right, St. Mark 3, verses 23 to 24 in the NLT. All right. And it says, Yahushua called them over and responded with an illustration. How can Shaitan cast out Shaitan, he asks. Shaitan is Hebrew for the spiritual demon Satan. Okay, if it were Satan of the spiritual demon Satan, which means adversary. Here's a point in verse 24 in the NLT. A kingdom divided by civil war will collapse. Now, why is that? Because, the physical manifestation of the spiritual demon Shaitan being the devil, Esau, Edom, devil meaning accuser, because he's been known, notorious for falsely accusing, individuals, mainly of the demographic of so-called Negroes and indigenous, of false charges, man, through his immoral decrees and policies, such as George Tenney in the 1940s being wrongfully accused of raping some Shedemite girls and then being electrocuted to death. Okay, and then several decades later, it came out that wasn't, that was a false accusation. Okay, but of course Esau didn't hold himself accountable. Why? Because they speak lawfully concerning our oppression. All right, pursuant to Psalm 73, Psalm 73rd chapter. Okay, Psalm 73 and 8 to be exact. Okay, so this is a physical manifestation of the spiritual demon Shaitan. Okay, continuing to perpetuate carnality and witchcraft on the earth through his ungodly satanic counsel, mainly through the satanic NWO, which further requires once again, the shutdown of the U.S. economy, okay, the increased violence, being further incited, and through their Hegelian dialectic, order abkeo, okay, through these federal agents harassing documented legal U.S. citizens, which further confirms they have an agenda at stake, okay, and people are opposing it because people are starting to read between the lines and see that there's nothing moral or logical about this agenda. Or you initially claimed that you were targeting undocumented illegal migrants / immigrants they should get out of the country, for possibly being tied to, the Venezuelan gangs, Trinidad Agua, and similar gangs from, Central America, South America, and so forth. Mainly of the so-called indigenous demographic, right? Hence why Trump claimed he was he was going after Maduro because of what I just said, and him supposedly being the head of the narco terrorist, war on drugs operation, which was a farce, obviously. Okay, but a lot of these Babylonians in America, modern day Babylon, don't know that. That's why they're confused and they're opposing this agenda of the devil through these violent uprisings, through these protests, okay, so forth. Because this is another prelude to civil war, as I mentioned that first in the first article. Okay, how we are in the beginning phases of civil war. Okay, which is part of the prophecy in Jeremiah 37 of Jacob's trouble, the time where the descendants of Jacob, okay, are going to be greatly affected by men, okay, through civil unrest and martial law, resulting in a lot of fatalities. All right. So St. Mark 3:24 in the NLT, a kingdom divided by civil war will collapse. Just like the pagan Western Roman Empire fell by civil war and corruption as a result of corruption. When you reserve one of the 8 reasons that the pagan Western Roman Empire fell on history.com, it is the same exact reasons, including corruption and civil war, as to why the mirroring image of the pagan Western Roman Empire, Rome, which is widely known as America, is going to fall. It is all biblical prophecy manifesting, man. Okay? But then these powerful signs and wonders, like I said in 2nd Ezra 9. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and grab this next precept in Isaiah 19:2 in the GNT. All right, we're going to pull it up real quick. Isaiah 19:2 in the GNT. The fuck? Slovakia. I know what's happening. Slovakia. It's Isaiah 19:2 in the GNT says, I'm going to enlarge this a little bit. Matter of fact, I won't worry about enlarging it. This precept is gonna be coming out more often, so I'll just go ahead and read it. Slovakia for the font size, but and these ads. It says in Isaiah 19:2 to GNT, the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshah says, "I will stir up civil war in Egypt and turn brother against brother and neighbor against neighbor. Rival cities will fight each other, and rival kings will struggle for power." We'll read that from the top. Isaiah 19:2 in the GNT. The Lord Yahweh by Shemeshah says, "I will stir up civil war in Egypt." And Egypt means house of bondage. Okay, and that's why Egypt is another spiritual alias for America, Babylon the Great. It says, "I will stir up civil war in Egypt and turn brother against brother and neighbor against neighbor." Okay. All right, liberal Edomite versus conservative Edomite and so forth. Democratic Edomite versus Republican Edomite and so forth, and vice versa. Okay. It says rival cities will fight each other and rival kings will struggle for power. Okay, and we see that. Okay, through these political officials, such as the Minnesota politicians rising up against Trump. Okay, such as Tim, what's his name? Tim Walz. Okay. All right. Yeah, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota. Okay, coming out and spilling the beans that the DHS in Minnesota has been going door to door. Okay, demanding for neighbors to point out their brown neighbors. Talking about Jake or anybody who looks like a Jake. That's why Chrissy Nome. There was a funny scene on that South Park series where Chrissy Nome mentioned the character playing Chrissy Nome mentioned something along the lines of, "If it's brown, take it down." You see that? So it's clear who Esau's been targeting all along, and why he's been targeting them all along. Which had nothing to do with um, the migrant surge / border crisis situation, targeting undocumented illegal immigrants / migrants. It had nothing to do with that. They use the immigration politics to justify, uh, invading and hunting the Israelites. And that's part of the insurrection prophesied in 2nd Ezra 16, verses 68 on down, man. Specifically in verse 70, how they're going to come after us. And they're already coming after us because we're in the beginning phases of civil war. Okay, 70 AD all over again, where the pagan Western Roman Empire, through the military, invaded Jerusalem, where the southern kingdom of Israel, the so-called Negroes, were predominantly on the scene at that time, and ended up forcing them to flee into to the Atlas Mountains. Okay, the mountains that Yahweh referred to. Okay, in Northwest Africa, the same place where the trans-Saharan slave trade took place, ironically. Okay, so just like these devils invaded us back then, they're doing it now. Okay, another reason why Yahweh said, "Pray that your flight come not in the winter," because ironically, what's happening right now? Okay, this winter plague, this winter storm plague, the Lord Yahweh Shemishai, it has been unleashing, on the earth. I'm gonna bring this out real quick. This is on newsbreak.com. It says 30 people deleted from effects of winter storm as more freezing cold pummels the U.S. Now, the reason why the reason why this the mentioning of this winter storm simultaneously in the midst of this civil unrest that's taking place by the national war provocations by these federal agents, especially ICE, is for the fact that we're within a winter time where civil war is at a premium, man. Within the beginning phase of civil war, all right, around the same time, ironically, where the Lord Yahweh Shemishai has brought this deadly winter storm plague that has claimed the lives of 30 people already, and the U.S. government shutdown deadline is on the 30th. Okay, or a few days away from now, around the same time where all this civil unrest is taking place, around the same time that this deadly winter storm plague is taking place. So that lines up with Yahushua said, "Pray that your flight come not in winter." Let me grab that real quick. Okay. Just like the priest Shimon in the main camp said, imagine if, we had to flee during winter, in so many words. Okay. Where these devils are coming after, after us, coming after our Jake, which they're going to do. Okay. Whether you're on the despite which color within a FEMA color coded list that you fall on, and these devils are gonna come after us, man. Okay, so this is let me type this in real quick. All right, this is St. Matthew 24 and 20. I'm gonna get this in the King James Version. St. Matthew 24 and 20 says, but pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. Okay. All right. So around the time when these devils invaded Jerusalem, it was around the time of winter, like around February. Okay. All right. We're within that time now, all over again. So this will be crucial and detrimental time, to have to flee from these devils, man, to flee from our homes and be on the run, moving like nomads, looking to get off the grid and whatnot. Now we know before this grid shuts down, these devils gonna have to they're going to need a black swan event, okay? So that can come through some kind of poly crisis, okay, or it can come through a blackout, okay, through some kind of cybernetics attack that they'll blame on Russia, China, or somebody. All right, where within the midst of this shutdown, okay, they'll present the chip as a remedy for the fear of people's national security. Okay, the fear of starving to death and so forth. Okay, which lines up Revelation 13 verses 16 to 18 of people taking a chip. Okay, not covered by the blood of the Lamb, whose names are not written in the book of life for salvation. Okay, but either way, we know that we're actually within a time, a very dark time, man. So it's not a coincidence that we're within the winter time, and we have civil war. We have civil war at an all-time high. We have this deadly winter storm plague the Lord Yahweh Shemashai has brought upon the world, mainly in America, and you got the U.S. government shutdown on the 30th, all simultaneously happening around the same time. And that lines up with what Yahushua said, how we're supposed to pray that a flight from these devils come out in the winter, okay? Because things are brewing up, man. All right, so with that, let's get another precept on that. Let's go back to Isaiah 19:2. Read that again. It says Isaiah 19:2 in the GNT. The Lord Yahweh Shemashah says, "I will stir up civil war in Egypt and turn brother against brother and neighbor against neighbor. Rival cities will fight each other, and rival kings will struggle for power." And exactly what's happening: a divide in America, Babylon the Great. Federal agents versus legal documented U.S. citizens, and vice versa. Okay, you know U.S. including U.S. politicians against Esau's government and vice versa. You see, so it's all out war. Then, matter of fact, let me go ahead and continue here. Go back to this article here. It says MAGA podcaster declares civil war and brands Trump week after I.C.E nurse shot deleted. All right, now similar article. So Newsbreak. Says Minneapolis man armed with AR-15 guards neighborhood amid ICE takeover. So this is some armed U.S. Civilian, which is the Edomite, by the way, of course, armed with an AR-15, claiming that he's looking to protect his people. Who is he talking about? When he said my people, you talk about his people, the Edomites. You see that? Because he's another pro white nationalist. Okay, that's why these devils are armed in the manner in which they are. Okay, because they're protecting their own quote unquote white nationalist interests. Okay, which is ironic because Esau's government is carrying out ethnic cleansing. That's why they're targeting so-called brown people, Jake, or people that look like Jake, that happen to be melanated or brown skin. Okay, all right. Because you got these Edomites on a lower echelon scale that have the same mentality. And they're further preparing for war against Esau's government, against their own government, even though they share similar ideals. But now their rights are being infringed upon, and their so-called liberty that Esau's government promised them, their fellow Edomites. This is why another reason why they targeted Alex Preddy and made sure that they covered that news headline is for the fact that he had a concealed weapon on his hip. All right, and they confiscated it as a further means to carry out this gun reform agenda on behalf of the National Rifles Association and so forth. So they look to remove these U.S. citizens from their firearms to make this satanic NWO more profitable to them, to further minimize as much resistance as possible from the U.S. citizens, especially these Edomites. So next article on the Hill. All right, go get this shit out the way, Slakia. Says Marjorie Taylor Greene says you're all being incited into civil war. That's what I've been talking about for the last several minutes. All right, I'm going to get rid of this pop up. Damn. Give me 1 second. It's a lot here for any buffering. Once again, I got quite a bit of tabs open. I've been meaning to do this lesson for a few days now, but there's just so much information that requires so much research to bring out. Instead of doing civil war lessons, I just, regarding the prophecy of civil war, of Jacob's trouble, and the sedition amongst men, I decided to just do, cover all bases of this current sedition within this civil war that Esau is inciting in America, Babylon the Great, and on all fronts. Just by bringing forth all the information up front. All right. To further confirm that without any shadow of a doubt that civil war is imminent in America, Babylon the Great. So this is on the Hill. Says former Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene out of Georgia urged President Trump's MAGA base to take off their political blinders as she expressed skepticism. Give me 1 second. About the use of force deployed during the latest shooting in Minnesota involving a federal immigration agent. In a post on a social platform X, Greene touted her support for law enforcement and immigration enforcement, but she also defended the right to legally carry firearms, indirectly pushing back on claims that 37-year-old Alex Pretty posed a threat to federal officers because he was armed. You see, so she's that's another reason why she stepped down as a politician. All right, and she could be controlled opposition, but DJT, what I'm saying, these other pro-patriotic Americans do not like her, okay? Because she calls out the wickedness of Esau's government, okay? Whether it is of controlled opposition or not, okay? It's still a fulfillment of prophecy of civil war, okay, including that division. Says so she went on to say, I unapologetically believe in border security and deporting criminal illegal aliens, and I support law enforcement. However, I also unapologetically support the Second Amendment, Greene wrote. All right, legally carrying a firearm is not the same as brandishing a firearm. All right, because once again, the Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. She said, I support America's First and Fourth Amendment rights. Okay, she continued, the First Amendment rights, justifies, recording people and so forth. Okay, in certain cases, says in our Fourth Amendment rights, okay, which requires goes into the requirement of, a judicial warrant, before, these, law enforcement or federal agents can, enter the premises of a U.S. citizen's home. So she says she supports America's First and Fourth Amendment rights. She continued, there is nothing wrong with legally, peacefully protesting and videoing. All right. The Trump administration has defended the shooting, saying the agent fired defensive shots at Pretty, which says who had a gun that was recovered by federal authorities. Others have accused the agent of acting with excessive force, pointing to video footage showing Pretty recording immigration and customs enforcement officers with his phone before the incident escalated. Okay, so the Trump administration is defending the shooting as if what those ICE agents didn't do is cold calculated MURDER. Okay. All right. Whereas the footage, once again, contradicts the claims of, DJT's administration. All right, and these federal agents. All right, and the head of these federal agents. All right, through Christy Nome and what's the name? The Border Czar, which Trump announced that he's getting ready to come to Minnesota. All right. So so this border czar, Tom Homan, the White House border czar, is reportedly being deployed to Minnesota as well. Okay. Says Trump, this is on Politico.com, says Trump sends border czar Homan to Minneapolis, talks talks with the Walls, says in Tim Walz, the Minnesota governor, amid shooting scrutiny. So it's not a coincidence that DJT is reportedly sending the border czar Tom Homan down in Minnesota, who's had some choice words against Jake regarding the whole quote unquote war on the migrant surge / border crisis situation. So it's on Newsbreak entitled ICE protester permanently blinded after feds shoot him point blank with non-lethal weapon. All right. So they're using non-lethal weapons on people, but now they're shooting people in cold blood because we're in the beginning phase of the Civil War, man. Okay. So I'm gonna play this next video, fair use.
Pull that trigger, no, we're just gonna stand here. No threat, no nothing. This guy.
Your face, you see my face.
You hear him? He's right. He's talking. He's threatening me, and this is nothing to him.
How am I threatening you, ma'am?
I didn't say threatening, I said haggling.
Haggling.
Yes.
Okay. If you give me this offer, I could take it, right? Oh, you're not gonna answer that? She gave me that offer. So, what's the answer to that?
She's half your age. She could be your daughter's age. Are you really gonna say something like that to somebody who's your daughter's age, your kid's age, your grandkid's age? Be ashamed. That's all
Why
I'm
should
gonna
I
say.
be ashamed when she gives me the offer like this?
Because
That's
you can be a
fucking
bigger man.
creepy.
You're
You're a weirdo. What if she's half your age, you How old are you?
She's a
Grow the up.
chivalry.
You're playing dress up. You're not gonna do You just came here to start stuff. Leave.
No, I came to watch idiots. That's what I'm doing. You're wearing panties.
You're
Come on,
LARPing.
take it off.
Look at what you're wearing. You've never been in the
Look
military.
at that.
You're a loser. Just go. How old are you? You wasted your life.
At me or something?
You have nothing going on for you.
He'll get hurt.
This is the highlight of your life. This is it. Nothing else happens after this for you. You lost. You squandered it. Your family's gone. Your kids are gone.
And
Look
that's why
at
you're
you.
standing here
This
by
is the
yourself.
highlight.
In one of the most embarrassing videos I have seen, this weirdo cosplayed as I.C.E. on the same plane.
That's all they asked you. He's one of us. Okay, good. I'm one of us. You all right, dude? You all right? Come on, breathe. He's one of us.
How do we know? How do we know?
I was with him earlier.
Why you get ran out earlier?
I don't know. He's one of us. I'm with them. Trust me. There's one position on it. You better have to straight leg. The whole time. You touch us pretty good. You all right, man?
Back up. Back up. Yeah, save your Nazi. Put him in your Nazi van. Go get him some help. He needs a little bit of mental health there. Don't he? Nobody got guns. So you gonna look me in the eye when you spray me? You gonna look me in the eye when you spray me?
Some online claim these are federal agents and or sheriff's officers infiltrating protests and movements in Minneapolis. Considering what we just saw, it's not hard to see that being the case. Still,
Do you actually work for ICE?
No, not at all. Nope.
Explain the outfit.
It's $29.99 on Amazon. I would recommend buying a small if you're my size. This one's a little too loose for my liking. But yeah, if you want some entertainment, wear this and go to a Home Depot in a sanctuary city like where I live right now, Washington, D.C., and you'll see all the illegals, not all of them, but you can maybe see a lot of them start to run away, and you feel like a group fitness instructor. It's really good.
And you actually think that's funny?
I think it's hilarious. Absolutely. What's not funny is them illegally.
There you have it, everybody. One of the worst people I've seen here at CPAC, and that's saying something.
losers like these emulate what they deep throat. As for the good liars' point, yeah, that really is saying something.
Oh my god, okay, let's go. Wait, I want to know if he's actually ICE.
Are you real ICE? Why are you dressed as ICE?
So what these devils are doing, as I mentioned earlier, they're purchasing these similar ICE or similar ICE attire off of certain websites like Amazon, and they're perpetuating as if they're ICE agents, whether they're doing it in a comedic fashion or they're actually doing it. Okay, so having all been said, how does one differentiate a quote unquote fake ICE agent and a quote unquote legitimate ICE agent? You see that? Meaning what? ICE is really a paramilitary, man. It's unofficial military force. Okay, so anybody can pose as an ICE agent. These are the times we're living in. All right. So I'm going to continue.
Halloween, no?
It's kind of an offensive costume, though. Wait, do you love it or do you hate it?
I'm gonna stay neutral on that one.
No. You're like dressing. You cannot be neutral.
I know.
clownish stuff. We're doing this has real life consequences. CBS Pittsburgh reported a man named William Gregory posed as an ICE agent during a home robbery. He was in custody after being knocked unconscious by a tenant.
Where are you from? Mexico? You from Mexico?
A warning tonight from authorities about people impersonating those agents.
You're going back to Mexico.
In a video shared widely on social media, a South Carolina man police have identified as Sean Michael Johnson is seen telling the Latino driver of this truck he's going to be sent back to Mexico.
No, you cannot drive, bro. You have not a license. No, you cannot.
At one point, taking the keys out of the ignition, dangling them in front of the driver, and mocking his accent.
I don't be speaking that pig Latin in my country, bro.
So this guy's not even a legitimate federal agent, but he's harassing this Jake with a Spanish accent. And he said, and he mocked him with his accent, saying, "Don't speak that pig Latin in my country. All right, it's not your fucking country, man, because you devils are the real illegal immigrants." I did a video on that some time ago. How you devils illegally entered America, Babylon the Great, okay, waged war against the true founding fathers of America, the indigenous men, okay, I.E. Squanto, okay, Sitting Bull, Geronimo, okay, Montezuma, all right, Asala Claw, so forth. And you invaded them, man, all right, and you stole their land, okay, named it America after Amerigo Vespucci, the Edomite conqueror / explorer. Then during the time of Napoleon Bonaparte during the 19th century, or during around the time of the Louisiana Purchase, you divided the territories amongst these devils, amongst your fellow devils, over going to war over the same territory amongst your fellow devils. All right, through the Spanish-American War and so forth. Okay, fighting with territory that never belonged to you after brutally and sadistically and heinously putting the true founding fathers of the indigenous people of the Northern Kingdom of Israel to death. Then setting up a border to really fend off the French invaders into American territory. Okay, in the midst of quote unquote white on white crime to fight over territory that didn't belong to you anyway, that you stole. Then then turn around and blame the border construction on the Jakes that you drove out of America, threatening to come back in. Okay, centuries later, this whole border crisis / migrant situation. So you devils have a lot to pay for, man, because you have a lot of audacity, a lot of nerve to call Jake illegal immigrants. Okay, when you're a vagabond, you don't have a true home. All right, because you're a walking parasite. And this is why people are rising up against you globally, not just on a national level, but globally. Okay, even your own allies of the NATO EU alliance rise up against you devils. All right, I digress.
Johnson.
But you know what? Speaking of accent, let me see. Here it is. Similar article, or similar situation report in this article titled "ICE demand man's documentation because of his accent and cruel video." Chilling video footage posted on X shows a heated confrontation between what appears to be a group of at least 4 ICE agents and a man whom they accuse of having an accent. The video, which has been viewed nearly 700,000 occasions with over 1,000 comments made at the time of writing, shows a lead agent with army-style uniform and covered face demanding papers from a man who was standing off camera. When challenged over why he's being asked for his papers, the man receives incredible reply: "Because of your accent," which means what? Racial profiling. Okay. So I'll come back to that in a minute. Let's get back to the video.
Who police say tried to report the driver for not having a license, was charged with kidnapping and impersonating a federal officer after the video circulated. Johnson could not be reached for comment. Over the weekend, Philadelphia police say 3 men wearing black T-shirts with ICE written on them impersonated federal officers to gain access to a resident hall at Temple University. Police only identifying one of them as 22-year-old Aiden Stiegelman. Last week in North Carolina, another horrifying incident when police say this man, Carl Thomas Bennett, was arrested for allegedly impersonating a law enforcement officer and sexually assaulting a woman at a motel.
Yeah, I don't know if that guy was set up or not, but you have a lot of bugged out Jakes, sellouts, okay, that are indulging this madness as well, by perpetrating, to be federal agents. A lot of these Southern Kingdom Jakes, despise Northern Kingdom Jakes because of the racial disparity and how a lot of lighter complected Northern Kingdom Jakes, look down on Judah or the Southern Kingdom and other Southern tribes. All right, a lot of these lighter complected Northern Kingdom Jakes think they're Edomites, right? Where they say they claim they're Spaniards. Why? Because they've been colonized to believe that. Because they speak the bastard language of Spanish that these Spanish-speaking Edomites, okay, indoctrinated them to speak after colonizing them and conquering them, okay, for so many years. All right. Indoctrinated them to indulge in their ways and so forth. So there's another component as to why a lot of these Southern Kingdom Jakes have a great disdain for Northern Kingdom Jakes. All right. So they indulge in this madness as well. All right. I digress.
Motel 6, threatening to deport her if she didn't comply. Bennett's attorney did not return NBC's request for comment.
These incidents, though, are rising.
They're searching. Somebody's searching that truck. That white truck. Look.
Yeah.
Who the hell is that? They're shining their flashlight in his face right now.
Yeah. And I have used a warrant press charges.
What the hell is going on? Okay. Look at this. They're getting searched right now. We got to get out and see what's going on, man. Who the hell is that guy? He's a security guard. He's got those guys detained and checking their license. Something ain't right over here. Something ain't right.
All right. Have a good night.
Who are you? Now he's calling the cops on us. Harvey Freebird. Yeah, it's Harvey Freebird. You're being live streamed right now, dumb.
Including with this man posing as a federal agent. 44-year-old Joshua Warner would be arrested at his place of residence. It's rather easy these days.
One of the things that's really a lot of you probably don't see this is people are basically dressing up as ICE agents, disguising as ICE agents, and grabbing people and taking people. And you may think, how is that possible? How can you possibly do that? So I thought, I don't think it's very hard. So I went to Amazon, and here's exactly what I did. The first thing I did was order this. It cost me like $4. So now I can't be identified. Perfect for thugging people. Mask. Then I ordered this vest, $30. Mask, $4. Vest, $30. I didn't order the handcuffs, but you can get handcuffs all over ICE. So now, all over Amazon. All I have to do now, truly all I have to do now is drive around LA in an unmarked car or anywhere there are Latinos, come screaming at them, take my handcuffs, grab them, put them in my car. Then I can do whatever the I can take their money. I can hold them for ransom. I can turn them in. I'm sure some ICE agents would pay good money knowing how scummy these people are. I am an ICE agent. This is me. I'm an ICE agent. I'm a middle-aged guy, white guy, wearing a green vest, and you can't see my face. And there's nothing you can do about it. So if
The devil said, this is how easy this is how convenient and easy it is for Esau to perpetrate being a federal agent. Like you said, he can take his fake ICE uniform, all right, approach a bunch of Jakes, inquire whether or not they're illegal, whether they're legal or not. Especially if they're legal, that's even more up the alley. These Edomites, adorning this fake ICE attire and harassing them and possibly detaining them. And Jake would just go along with it because Jake is Jake doesn't understand their rights, okay, collectively, and more importantly, Jake is simple, okay, all right, case in point. So these devils study us, man. And so the problem with our people is that they don't study these devils back. They just especially the Northern Kingdom, man. A lot of you lighter complected Northern Kingdom Jakes as well, but especially a lot of you that think that you're Edomites. Right about now you're getting a nigga wake up call, man. You're trying to find out you're trying to get your reality check, and by finding out the hard way that our common oppressor, the self-proclaimed white man, Esau Edom, despises you as well. Okay, so they started with you, this whole migrant, by targeting you through this whole migrant surge / border crisis situation. Now that they're trickling down to the southern kingdom. Further fulfilling the Jeremiah 15:33, how they refuse to let Judah and Israel go, the southern kingdom of Israel and the northern kingdom of Israel. There's a real reason why they are targeting a main demographic of people, which are the so-called Negroes and indigenous. Okay, brown people, people of color, that they believe to be Jake's Israelites, descendants of Jacob, okay, who predominantly are melanated, even though, a lot of Israelites look like the other nations, due to the curse in Deuteronomy 28 and 64 being scattered across the four corners of the earth. So having always been said, segueing back to what this devil is explaining, it's very convenient and easy for these devils to perpetuate being a federal agent. So who knows who's really quote unquote legit or not? Okay. In some cases it would appear to be, more obvious if they got ICE on the uniform. But even with that, according to the information coming out, you can't just go off of that anymore. So that further confirms, man, we're living in a very corrupt, tyrannical beast system. Why? Because the world is ultimately a stage, okay, where the wicked have, where it was rigged for the wicked to triumph. And this is why Jake is losing right now, okay? Because it's not our world, all right?
If I capture you, you can't. I'm not showing my ID because I'm an ICE agent. ICE agents aren't showing their IDs. I don't have a warrant because ICE agents aren't showing warrants. I can break your. You can't do anything about it. No one's going to stop me. And that's what's going on right now, all over the. You don't just have ICE agents grabbing people based on the color of their skin. You have people dressed up as ICE agents, pretending to be ICE agents, seeking out money, seeking out whatever, terrorizing communities.
As sports writer Jeff Pearlman.
Yeah, that's what he said, and that's what's been going on, man. So I'm gonna play this next video of an ICE agent in Maine calling a legal observer a domestic terrorist, which sounds like an Edomite woman, by the way. But I'm going to play this video. This next video.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah. Why are you taking my information down?
Because we have a nice little database.
Oh, good.
And now you're considered a domestic terrorist. So
We're videotaping you? Are you crazy?
Okay, so this was recorded in Maine. All right, where an ICE agent, okay, somebody appears to be an ICE agent, okay, approached this woman, who was a legal observer, and mentioned that he had taken her information and inserted her information into a database, okay, to deem her or classify or categorize her as a domestic terrorist. So meaning what? It has been reported that now ICE is creating a watch list of people who watched him and plugged them into databases. Okay, basically, essentially using their First Amendment rights against them to declare them as domestic terrorists, according to a DHS report that was given to the journalist by the name of Ken Klippenstein. Okay, so now this is what Esau is doing. He's using people's First Amendment rights against him. Okay, regarding the legality of people recording them against him to insert their information, if attainable, into their database to categorize those people recording them as domestic terrorists. So having always been said, if you record these devils, they could deem you as a domestic terrorist. This is how out of hand this whole ICE operation, this whole ICE covert operation is, these whole ICE covert operations have gotten. Why? Because this is another insight that Esau is coming down with great wrath, knowing that he has but a short time. Okay? That's why, because the devil is being exposed. Why? Because of the wickedness that you devils have perpetuated in the earth. So this is on Newsbreak entitled Minneapolis Protester Bites Off ICE Agent's Finger as Chaos Erupts After Shooting. Okay. So it says there has been a second shooting in Minneapolis, deleting a 37-year-old man, and it appears protesters are turning on ICE agents. And that's sedition, man. Okay. In Second Ezra 15 and 16. It says Tricia McLaughlin, Assistant Secretary, Department of Homeland Security, has shared a post on X that reads, in Minneapolis, these rioters had attacked our law enforcement officer, and one of them bit off our HSI officer's finger. She added he will lose his finger. All right. So jump down. She also shared photos that shows a woman sitting calmly and a man grimacing in pain. It seems the woman may have been the one to have bit off the man's finger. So you can see here, this devil is holding his this ICE agent is holding his hand, and they're blurring out his hand because he got his damn finger bit off, man. Okay, by this woman, this spirit of vengeance. Okay, so in addition to the two people who are possibly involved, there's a picture of a severed finger. There was no explanation of what exactly led to the finger being bitten off, other than the ICE agent shooting. But there appears to be public unrest throughout the city. Earlier today, people were seen arguing and wrestling each other to the ground, followed by gunshots. It's hard to make out who is who, whether the people are protesters or ICE agents or both, but what is known, a life was lost. The shooting victim, Alex Jeffrey Preddy, age 37, was an American citizen and ICU nurse. He was reportedly carrying a blicky, but he had a permit to carry the blicky. But according to DJT, he fired. He was using it with aggressive force against ICE agent, which is a goddamn blatant lie. Because the footage I showed and the first video I played showed otherwise, man. So these devils are being exposed, okay, for being habitual and blatant liars, for being for being murderers. So just say it plainly, man. Okay. All right. Harassing people, through tyranny, corruption. This is part of the nature of self-proclaimed white man. This is what has brought forth these violent uprisings, and it was eventually will justify Esau, which will compel Esau to justify imposing martial law. So we're not ignorant of you devil's devices, man. We understand that this is your agenda. Now it's targeting documented U.S. citizens, mainly Jake. Okay, I'll get to why I mentioned mainly Jake in a minute. But it's on CNN entitled 1,500 soldiers on standby. You can just pop up out of the way. 1,500 soldiers on standby for possible Minnesota deployment, source says, as state mobilizes National Guard. So the state of Minnesota, through the Minnesota governor, Tim Walz, okay, has called for the deployment of National Guard, man. Meaning what? National Guard against ICE. So this is full-fledged civil war. Okay, where it's the state versus the government. All right. Says the Pentagon has ordered about 1,500 active duty soldiers to prepare for possible deployment in Minnesota, according to a Trump administration source, as state officials have also mobilized the National Guard. So it's getting hectic, man. Call alarm like how about Shamir Shai. All right. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and you can read all these articles on your own. You know what I'm saying? Take screenshots. Whatever's clever. You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna go ahead and, like I said, do rapid fire within these articles because there's a lot of information. All right. Jake got a short attention span and it's late. So a lot of Jake's asleep, getting ready to, preparing to hit the plantation tomorrow. So it is what it is, man. Spirit had to come out at this time. So whoever comes across it, is edified and exhorted out on Ratazah. All right. So, so with that, I'm gonna get this next precept. I believe it's gonna be, let me see, Proverbs 29. And before I do that, get this next precept here. Go back and go back to Isaiah 19:2 in the GNT, and it reads, "The Lord Yahweh Shemeshah says, I will stir up civil war in Egypt and turn brother against brother and neighbor against neighbor. Rival cities will fight each other and rival kings will struggle for power." So in a modern day sense, the context of Egypt is referring to modern day Egypt, as in a modern day house of bondage, okay, which is America, and hence why people on bondage, specifically Jake, to this Esau's beast system through the Social Security system, okay, which Social Security numbers represents our barcodes to the wicked elite, central bankers, which further confirms that we are their property. That's why they call us Goyim, bottomless feeders, bottomless cattle, so forth, because we're subject to payments to these devils through modern day Roman tributaries, through these taxes and so forth. And if you don't pay the taxes, then this devil can bring forth tax evasion charges on you, man, or on us in modern day Egypt. That's why another reason why civil war is taking place, because of this high level corruption and tyranny, man. So this further expound on what this matter of Egypt is talking about. Let's get Joel 3:19. It reads, Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom shall be a desolate wilderness for the violence against the children of Judah, because they have shed innocent blood in their land. Okay, in Jerusalem, you devils did this. Okay, especially during the Roman siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD, where you forced the kingdom of Judah, so-called Negroes, to flee, including these so-called Negro, the tribe of Judah, and the kingdom of Judah, the southern kingdom, so-called Negro tribes, to flee to Northwest Africa. Okay, then you've been shedding their blood in America, Babylon the Great, through the force of your sword, as it mentions in Ezekiel, the 35th chapter. And this is how we further correlate modern day Egypt with Edom, because it's prophesied which nation would be ruling this modern day Egyptian empire within these last days, and that's the nation of Edom, the subclan white race. Okay, the so-called Caucasians, whose bloodline derives back to whoever's bloodline of that demographic of people derives back to the bloodline of Esau, Edom. All right, mainly the upper echelon Edomites, the Amalekites, the Zionist bankers. Okay, the chief of the house of Edom. Okay, running, regulating people's lives to the central banks, the IMF. You know what I'm saying? The pornography industry, Hollywood, the coven of witches and warlocks. Okay, the media outlets, which 96% of these global media outlets are controlled by these same people that perpetuated the violence in our lands. Okay, so this is why Egypt shall be a desolation and Edom shall be a desolate wilderness, because there's a correlation between this modern day Egyptian empire and the rulership of Edom in terms of which nation will be revealed in these last days, ruling over the modern day Egyptian empire, which is America, Babylon the Great. Okay, so this is why you devils have hell coming to you, man. The modern day, the modern day pharaohs, if you were rulers of this modern day Egyptian empire. Okay, because you don't fear the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai. Okay, by blasphemy against the Holy Spirit, like Yuval Noah Harari saying that AI is a new God, and that human beings no longer need the idea of the Most High God, and so forth. So you might have a lot of hell to pay for your blasphemy, your many blasphemies against the Holy Spirit of Yahweh Shem Shai, and desecrating and destroying the heritage of Jake. All right, as it says in the book of Jeremiah, you're gonna have to pay for that. All right. So this is Malachi 1 verses 3-4. It says, "And I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness." Verse 4. Here's a point. Salakia. "Whereas Edom said, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus said the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yashai of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yashai had indignation forever." And indignation is righteous anger. All right. So you devils were impoverished. Okay, within your desolate state during the Dark Ages. Okay, when you fell during the Renaissance, before the Renaissance period, during the Dark Ages. Okay, by the hands of Nerva. All right. Okay, within a time where Septimius Severus and Pesimius Niger, Marcus Aurelius, and so forth are ruling over you devils, man. Okay. I believe Hannibal of Carthage was also on the scene around that time. These are all mighty warriors of the Southern Kingdom that were ruling over you devils during the Dark Ages. Okay, from around the time of 96, what was that, 96 AD up until the 14th to 15th centuries. That's a long time to rule over you devils, man. That was around the time of you being impoverished during your desolate state, during your desolate state, where during the Renaissance period, around the 14th, 15th centuries, you sought out to rebuild the desolate places. Part of your quest of doing that was to avenge yourselves for falling at the hands of the descendants or at the hand of our forefathers of the Southern Kingdom, predominantly in the scene during the Dark Ages and the Byzantine Empire. So this is Malachi 1 and 4 from the top. Whereas Edom said, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. That said the Lord, Yahweh by Shemeshai of hosts. They shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord, Yahweh by Shemeshai, had indignation forever. So you sought out to rebuild your desolate places, okay, modern day Egypt, just to fall again, okay? So this is Proverbs 29 and 2. All right, it reads, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked bear the rule, the people mourn. Okay, so people are mourning right now because your wickedness. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and blow this precept up. So I'm going to try to get into the habit of reading them through the KJV site, because the fonts in the Blue Letter Bible through the lives, the StreamYard tends to be smaller print or smaller font. So we get Proverbs 29 and 2. Read it again in the KJV 11 website. It says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked bear the rule, the people mourn. So we're witnessing the latter of this precept unfold. Okay, mourning from the people of the world, of the vast majority, protesting, violently uprising against these federal agents. Okay, including bringing their firearms. Okay, in the midst, within the vicinity of these federal agents, antagonizing these federal agents, including women. Okay. Because of the heat, the pressure has been turned up by the Lord, Yahweh Shemeshai, and these proud Babylonians are feeling it, man. Okay, because the state of lawlessness, okay, that we're in the midst of. So this is the book of Habakkuk 1 in verse 4. And it reads, Salakia. Let's go ahead and type it in. This is Habakkuk chapter 1 and verse 4. It reads, therefore the law is slacked, and judgment doth never go forth. For the wicked doth compass about the righteous. Therefore, wrong judgment proceedeth. All right, wrong judgment is proceeding, okay, through biased, disingenuous, insincere, unfair, okay, unrighteous judgment, because the law of the Lord, Yahweh Shemeshai, has slacked, and righteous judgment is a manner of judgment that has not gone forth. Okay, whether the laws of the land, Esau's bylaws, those constitutional, his so-called Bill of Rights and constitutional laws have far outweighed the law, statutes, commandments of Yahweh Shemeshai within Esau's rulership. Why? Because like it says here, Psalm, and let me get it. You get in the Psalm 15:16. I believe it's in the NLT. Yep. Psalm 15:16 and 17 in NLT reads, but the Most High God, Yahweh, by Shemeshai says to the wicked, why bother reciting my decrees and pretending to obey my covenant? Such as, proclaiming in God we trust, okay, acting like America's pro-Christian country when it's really a satanic capitalistic corporation, man. All right. Here's a point in Psalm 50:17 NLT. For you refuse my discipline and treat my words like trash. Okay. By claiming that they're abiding by the laws of the Most High. All right. By saying in God we trust, but really God is acting in for gold, oil, and drugs to further reveal the covetous aspirations of the self-proclaimed white man. Hence why he was hiding under the guise of narco-terrorism on a so-called war on drugs, by, bombing Venezuela and capturing the former Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro. But then when DJT, brought forth that public declaration / announcement, he had further announced that and declared that the reason why they were in Venezuela was to take over the oil infrastructure of Venezuela. So what happened to the whole so-called war on drugs and Maduro supposedly being the head of the Venezuelan gang, Tren de Agua, which is completely asinine and ridiculous because that was never substantiated with proof by DJT. Just like they've been hiding under the guise of so-called the so-called war on the migrant surge / the border crisis on illegal immigrants / migrants. But how is it now that they're targeting documented legal U.S. citizens? Why? Because these devils like to throw out smoke screens, okay, to masquerade or hide their true nefarious purposes or intentions within their satanic NWO agenda. Okay, and make it seem like why they're terrorizing the world is for a good cause, a righteous cause, when it's not, because they don't care about the law, statutes, commandments of the Lord, including removing thy neighbor's landmark, as it says in Deuteronomy 19:14. Okay, which they're guilty of that from their forefathers stealing Jerusalem from our people and making Jerusalem a Roman province, especially during the time of the Herodian dynasty during King Herod. Then they're also guilty of stealing a landmark. Stealing the landmark from Jake during the Spanish Inquisition by seizing the natural resources of America and stealing America as a whole from the true founding fathers of America. You know what I'm saying? Of the indigenous men specifically of the Northern Kingdom of Israel. And they're doing it now. They're still doing it. Okay? Venezuela, stealing oil from Venezuela unjustifiably through a violation of international law in terms of how they've been, invading other lands and other foreign territories that are not of theirs. Recently, there was a report that DJT just slapped a minimum of at least 25% worth of tariffs on South Korea. Now, South Korea is a U.S. ally, okay, as another proxy, okay, to North Korea to try, to war with North Korea. But now they're continuing to slap tariffs and sanctions on their own allies, man, further waging geo-economical warfare on their own allies. So what more so you, Jakes? Where do you think you stand in the grand scheme of things? This is why these devils are coming down with great wrath, knowing that they got but a short time, man. Because it's over for these devils. That's why people are coming at them. Okay, let's go back to Proverbs 29:2. Let me get this again. Habakkuk 1:4. Therefore the law is slacked, and judgment doth never go forth. For the wicked doth compass about the righteous. Therefore, wrong judgment proceedeth. So the wicked compass about the righteous. Therefore, wrong judgment proceeded. Why? Because the earth was given into the hands of the wicked. Prophesied in Job 9:24. So with that, let's get some more articles and videos. I'm going to continue with this video here. All right, fair use.
Like, sit down, buckle up, because this is Trump and ICE have lost the cops in Minnesota. Like, sit down, buckle up, because this is an utterly striking press conference from police chiefs in Minnesota telling ICE, well, listen to them.
Yeah, let's get to this.
Recently, as the last 2 weeks, we as law enforcement community have been receiving endless complaints about civil rights violations in our streets from U.S. citizens. what we're hearing is they're being stopped in traffic stops or on the street with no cause and being forced to demand paperwork to determine if they are here legally.
Okay, so no cause means no probable cause. All right.
As this went on over the past 2 weeks, we started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty. Every one of these individuals is a person of color who has had this happen to them.
You know what he said? And why that a little bit?
While off duty. Every one of these individuals is a person of color who has had this happen to them.
Okay, so the Minnesota law enforcement personnel, okay, including off-duty officers, okay, reported by this what appears to be an Edomite here. Okay, it looks like this Minnesota police chief has confirmed that ICE, okay, Esau's Trump's paramilitary have been targeting melanated Minnesota cops. Okay, if you look like a Jake, meaning what? If you're brown skinned, if you're melanated, whether you're a cop or not, these federal agents, okay, feel compelled to demand that you prove your U.S. citizenship. So now it's not just they're not just doing this with U.S. citizens; they're doing this with cops. So not a coincidence that the Minnesota governor Tim Walz has is reportedly in the works of deploying the National Guard, his portion of the National Guard against these federal agents, man. So this is a full-fledged war in the making. So I'm gonna play a few more seconds of this video.
In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway. When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a U.S. citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork. When she became concerned about the rhetoric and the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone. In an attempt to record the incident, the phone was knocked out of her hands.
And that's a violation of the First Amendment. So just like these ICE agents violated Alex Preddy's First and Second Amendment rights, they continue to violate the constitutional rights of these U.S. citizens and these cops. And that's actually, and not only did they do that, but that was actually assault to knock the damn phone out of her hand, man. So that's antagonizing a police officer. So this is full-fledged war, man. I'm gonna continue.
Prevented her from recording it. The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction. And after the officer became so concerned, they were forced to identify themselves as a Brooklyn Park police officer in hopes of slowing the incident and de-escalating the incident down. The agents then immediately left after hearing this, making no other comments, no other apologies, just got in their vehicles and left. I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident. In fact, many of the chiefs standing behind me have similar incidents with their off-duty officers.
All right, so this guy, Chief Mark, let me rewind this a little bit.
Our officers, it pains me to think of how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day.
And that last line, I think, is really important.
Yeah, so he's a Minnesota police chief, Mark Bruley, whatever his name was. So he brought it out, man. ICE is racially profiling not just U.S. citizens, documented U.S. legal citizens, but documented legal U.S. citizens who are cops. All right.
We're also
here's another report, similar report, and how they're not only are these ICE agents, these federal agents, including ICE, violating people's so-called First and Second Amendment rights, but also violating the Fourth Amendment rights, which you're going to explain in this video. Now, the reason I say so-called is because Jake didn't really have rights here, man, because we're still considered 3/5 of a human being under Esau's 3/5 clause. All right, so this is where Jake goes wrong, where they get stopped by these federal agents and they buck up, okay, and refrain, from, providing identification to these federal agents. All right, well, when they don't, for the fact they don't realize that this is not our world, man. And we were not brought to America, Babylon the Great, to share the prosperity and liberty with Esau, Edom. Okay, so I'm going to continue. This report is on CBS entitled Trump Administration Memo Allows ICE to Enter Homes Without a Judicial Warrant in Some Cases, which is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. All right.
Learning about a newly disclosed whistleblower complaint that shows ICE was authorized to forcibly enter people's homes without a judicial warrant. CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camilo Montoya Galvez joins me in studio now to discuss this. Camilo, good morning.
Good morning.
Talk to us about this memo. It seems key, and what exactly the memo says.
Errol, this memo represents a marked and major change in U.S. immigration policy. Historically, ICE agents have been instructed to refrain from going into private property, people's homes, unless they have a judicial warrant signed by a judge. That is because the Constitution has long been interpreted to mean that federal, state, and local officials cannot enter private property without that judicial warrant. But with this memo signed in May of 2025, but just disclosed yesterday, the Department of Homeland Security is essentially arguing that the agents on the ground can bypass that constitutional protection if it involves people who have deportation orders. In other words, immigrants who have been ordered deported by an immigration judge or an immigration court. The memo authorizes agents in those situations to enter private property by force to arrest and detain and process for deportation people who have final deportation orders. Again, without a judicial warrant, only having an administrative immigration warrant signed by the agency, not by a judge. This will likely trigger significant legal challenges because, again, the Constitution has been interpreted to mean that you cannot conduct a search without a warrant.
So this tells
Right,
us
so in other words,
how this administration is interpreting the Constitution.
In other words, ICE can use a memorandum as a loophole to finagle around the Fourth Amendment in terms of how they dictate how or why. Okay, they can enter into the premises of someone's home without a judicial warrant, where the U.S. Constitution says otherwise within the Fourth Amendment. So this devil is this further confirms he's a hypocrite and a truce breaker, man. Okay. So they could literally enter people's homes without a judicial warrant. Okay, within a loophole of a damn memorandum that's ICE looking to bring forth. All right, so this is a Newsbreak entitled Vice President J.D. Vance signals U.S. will expand deportations, says ICE will be going door to door. It says the comments came just hours after an ICE officer fatally shot a Minneapolis woman during a federal immigration operation, a tragedy that has inflamed civil liberties advocates and renewed scrutiny of immigration enforcement tactics. Says in an interview, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. In an interview on Fox News with host Jesse Waters, Vance said the administration is hiring more personnel for immigration and customs enforcement and expects to see those deportation figures ramp up as agents are deployed into communities. Okay, so that lines up with the Minnesota governor, Tim Walz, was saying how he had exposed how DHS agents were going door to door, okay, looking for brown people, okay, and then they're coming across particular, residents in those targeted areas within their covert ICE operations to point out brown people. And JD Vance is co-signing the same notion, okay, of targeting Jake, and this is what which is what the Minnesota governor Tim Walz was pointing out, that JD Vance has further co-signed, man, further co-signing what DJT was saying, okay. Back on in terms of justifying, targeting, people, targeting Jake. So this is it's also a Newsbreak. It says JD Vance stuns with claim ICE agent who deleted woman shares Trump's absolute immunity. See? So just like Botox Christie Nome, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, was advocating the same exact thing in terms of giving these federal agents immunity for putting people to death for being perceived to pose these federal agent covert operations of detaining particular subjects that are considered a threat to national security of U.S. citizens, which is BS. Because how is that the case when you devils have been exposed to the federal agencies of targeting documented legal U.S. citizens? Because that's a part of the beginning phase of civil war. All right. So I'm going to play this video. Right. Fair use.
I think we should look at this chart. This chart shows the budget of the U.S. government agency called Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. You can see that they're pretty well funded, around $10 billion a year. I looked up this chart because ICE has been in the news recently.
ICE agents detained some 1,600 illegal migrants on Tuesday.
Raided this meatpacking plant.
Rounding up workers. 20 to about 100 people detained without explanation.
Put into handcuffs.
And taken to detention centers.
ICE is a kind of immigration police. And long before Donald Trump, at the very beginning of when ICE was created in the early 2000s, the agency had a very ambitious goal: to deport everyone they possibly could, to, quote, remove all removable aliens. They share the same parent agency as Customs and Border Protection, which focuses on the border. ICE focuses on all of this, the interior.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials wasting little time under the new administration.
Arrested nearly 1,200 large-scale immigration building was surrounded by.
The real reason why they're arresting so many people is because they have a particular quota to fill. In order to achieve their quota, they have to target a specific demographic of people internally within America, Babylon the Great, which is Jake. So this is clear who they're targeting, why they're targeting them. It has nothing to do with U.S. legal status or citizenship. All right, and he explains this in the video, which I'm not sure where that minute mark is. I'm not gonna really focus on that. What I will focus on, however, is what he mentioned around his 29-minute mark. All right.
That an increase in the foreign-born population is associated with less property and violent crime in a community. I'm going to put the link to the studies here and some of the stats in our sources so that you can go evaluate them for yourself. Okay, but most Americans aren't looking at the data. They're watching this.
A murder committed by a man in the country illegally. From Peru.
An undocumented farm worker.
Another undocumented immigrant.
Accused in a gruesome crime.
So Trump rides this wave. It's like his central message in the 2024 presidential campaign. And he makes a big promise.
The largest deportation operation in American history.
And then he wins.
Donald Trump will be the 47th president of the United States.
I will not let you down. America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, richer, safer, and stronger than it has ever been before.
And this time, his people are ready.
In the first Trump administration, they kept losing. They had poorly drafted rules that judges struck down, and you learn from failure.
On his first day in office, Trump declares a national emergency on the border. He sends the military there, he freezes the refugee program, he suspends asylum, he revives an 18th century war law to justify deporting gang members. He makes it way easier to just deport people without due process, which you can do through some loopholing and some like maximalist reading of the law. No hearing. He directs.
I believe that's a violation of the Fifth Amendment. That reminds me, speaking of former administration, during his first administration, he established a more decree known as what was it called? Back around 2018, it was another immigration policy known as zero tolerance policy, where he was justifying separating the children of the parents of these so-called illegal migrants, immigrants, which is wickedness, and holding them in separate facilities and so forth, and doing who knows what they were doing back then. But now it's been exposed what they've been doing to these children and these women. Okay, mainly of Jake. Okay, that they've been coining migrants, immigrants. All right, because of the advanced technology. Okay, within these ending times, said exposing the wickedness of these devils, man. So I'm gonna get into that momentarily. After playing a few more seconds of this video.
Immigration judges to look for anyone who is in this limbo waiting for an asylum hearing and to fast track deny them without a hearing to get them deported faster. He rolls back temporary protected status for a few 100,000 people, tells them it's time to go back to their country. He revokes student visas, and he offers $1,000 for any undocumented immigrant to self-deport. They literally call it a exit bonus, which sounds like a HR corporate America term, which I guess that's not surprising. He says that anyone who is meant to be deported and doesn't go will get a fine that is $1,000 a day. His goal is to deport 1 million people in his first year in office, but he has a problem.
It just sounds like bribing. And speaking of which, they had like a bounty group, a right-wing, pro right-wing bounty group that was reportedly being offered, the opportunity to hunt Jake, these so-called illegal migrants and immigrants of Jake, of the descendants of Jacob. All right. So that further describes a paramilitary, man. Okay, that's essentially what ICE is. So I'm going to continue. Actually, what I'm gonna do. That was it on that video. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll play this next video by this Jake woman, okay, with a mental condition, okay, another documented legal U.S. citizen who got unlawfully detained by his paramilitary known as ICE, on an autistic Jake woman on way to a medical appointment. All right, so I'm going to play this video.
The doctor, you heard her say 9 days ago when she got caught in the middle of an ICE operation, just in traffic. The video you saw shows Aliyah Rahman being carried away by ICE officers. Aliyah has a traumatic
break. We're going to refresh this, play from the beginning.
Me down! I was just trying to get to the doctor and I'm autistic. It takes me a second to understand. Step back!
That U.S. citizen was just trying to go to the doctor, you heard her say 9 days ago when she got caught in the middle of an ICE operation, just in traffic. The video you saw shows Aliyah Rahman being carried away by ICE officers. Aliyah has a traumatic brain injury, suffered before the ICE incident, and she also has autism. Her story has been seen, that photo rather, has been seen around the world, but her story hasn't been heard here at home until now. Take a listen.
I was on my way to a regular appointment at the Traumatic Brain Injury Center. First thing I actually just see is traffic is stopping, right? Then started to see people running across the two side streets.
Aliyah said then she hears whistles and yelling, so she tries to go around. And then
All right, video for Salakia. Spiritual demon Satan. Yeah, man, you get out of these damn devils playing with the connection. You devils ain't stopping shit, man. If that is the case. These fucking devils. Anyway, man, this autistic woman got apprehended by ICE. You heard her testimony. Basically, what she was doing was just to explain her story or what happened to her. Is she was she was on her way to her doctor's appointment. She mentioned because she's autistic, and she came through basically an ICE checkpoint, so she was confused what was going on. So she tried to maneuver around the ICE vehicles. One thing led to another, and she came across an ICE agent and basically demanded she roll her window down. Before she knew it, she was getting dragged out of her vehicle. So she had a little story about it, but the video froze up. So I'm gonna go ahead and play the next video, which I've been meaning to play. All right.
Welcome to the next generation of website creation.
Because these ICE agents,
Wix Harmony. Get the
these ICE agents starting to target more of you women, especially our women, because women and children have always been spoils of war. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and play this next video. Play a few minutes of this next video. It's on fair use.
Oh, y agarraron a alguien. Ah, por...
¿Qué? ¿Por qué?
Agarraron a alguien, llevan a alguien.
¿Cierto? No, pero
Sí.
no.
Sí. Porque el guardia se bajó, él se bajó con él.
This is a very, very disturbing video. In it, we see a handcuffed woman go into a porta potty and an ICE agent go in with her. Deeply concerning because
This mom of 8 was deported one day after accusing an ICE agent of sexual harassment. Sylvia Reyna Mendoza has emergency protected status in the U.S. after fleeing Mexico 40 years ago as a teenager to escape domestic violence. Now, according to Mendoza, an ICE contractor was harassing her with frequent calls, texts, and unwelcome sexually explicit images, including nudes and videos of him masturbating. The contractor also tried to solicit sexual favors from Reyna Mendoza, saying things like, "If you're good to me, I'll be good to you." The man in question was from I.C.E, an ICE contractor that was monitoring and overseeing Reyna Mendoza's open immigration case. When Mendoza tried to report the contractor, there was no follow-up, and the family said that there were attempts to delete evidence of her claims. This led Mendoza to seek a civil lawsuit against the company. But I.C.E is a subsidiary of GEO Group, an enormous private prison that donated heavily to Trump's campaign and has since benefited enormously from his ICE raids.
we have seen a pattern over the years.
In immigration news, ProPublica and the Texas Tribune report guards at an ICE jail, that's Immigration and Customs Enforcement in El Paso, Texas, systematically sexually assaulted and harassed at least 3 prisoners. A 32-year-old Salvadoran woman who was recently released from the ICE jail brought the accusations to light and told her attorney she feared for other prisoners in custody. The assaults would allegedly take place in areas that were not recorded by surveillance cameras. Another woman who came forward, a 35-year-old mother from Mexico, faces deportation this week as attorneys demand a criminal investigation.
This clip, for example, was from 5 years ago.
Approximately 25.
Okay, so it's been reported that these ICE agents within these migrant detention facilities, especially the biggest one in America, Babylon the Great down here, then the one on Fort Bliss military base, have been raping these women, man. Which means they've been doing it. They're just getting caught because of the advanced technology now, within the phones and so forth. Okay, and these particular advanced surveillance technologies within these cameras and so forth, picking up on this information. Okay. All right. So now they're having a way with our women off camera. All right, because our people are, especially our women, are more, most vulnerable with those holding cells, those migrant detention facilities. All right. So we're going to play a few more minutes of this.
100 children separated at the border from their families are supposed to be reunited by July 26th. While the country pays attention to that story, there's another detention story which has gotten less coverage. That is, allegations of abuse inside detention centers. Data from the Department of Homeland Security's Office of the Inspector General show that thousands of migrants have claimed they were sexually abused while in ICE custody. How widespread is this?
Through Watchdog.
Yeah, these devils are playing with the connection, man. Shalak Rayam to you fucking Edomites, man. They're playing with the connection.
We wanted to take a deeper look and really understand the extent to which this was happening. And so we were looking at two sets of data. One was from the Office of the Inspector General, which you mentioned, and then the other was from ICE itself that was looking at 1,310 allegations of sexual abuse occurring between 2013 and 2017. So we were looking at those two sets of data, but understanding that there were a number of issues with those sets of data. The first, of course, is that this issue is largely underreported. We're talking about a population who are often fleeing violence and persecution, who are often asylum seekers, who don't speak the language, as in the case of ED and the guard Daniel Sharkey. There's this fear of deportation. If you tell someone, will you be deported back?
This clip is from in December of 2025, the ACLU sent a letter to ICE detailing violent assaults about and including sexual abuse. The Louisiana Illuminator wrote in September, the complaints allege that a former assistant warden, Manuel Reyes, at the South Louisiana ICE Processing Center repeatedly sexually abused, threatened, and punished one of the complainants, who was referred to as Jane Doe, by her lawyers. The complainants would allege that Reyes ran an off-the-books late-night work scheme that coerced trans detainees into physically and psychologically painful labor. Reyes was not reached for comment.
As I said, literal criminals are joining ICE. I didn't show you all the videos, but just understand, they assaulted an 84-year-old married couple, and there's evidence of that. They shot a priest in the face with a pepper ball. They tear gassed a baby and ran over people with cars. They tear gassed journalists and cops. They zip tied naked kids who were U.S. citizens and put them in the back of a U-Haul van at 2 o'clock in the morning. They deported a guy for having cologne. The cologne was named opium, so they pretended like it was actual opium and deported him. They deported a guy who was wrongfully imprisoned for 40 years, finally gets his name cleared, is finally released, and he gets shipped out of the country. They tackled a 79-year-old car wash owner and hospitalized him. They've raided schools and meatpacking facilities and farms and Home Depots and 7-Elevens. We're dealing with actual demons here. That's what you need to understand. This isn't law enforcement. They're not law enforcement. These are the criminals. They're the problem. I know history. I read history. I know what this looks like. This is fascism. This is fascism. And only honest people will admit that.
Then there was a...
So that's interesting what he says. Kyle Kalinske from Secular Talk. And he's an atheist. And I believe he's a Jake, right? But it's very interesting that he, as an atheist, would admit that these Edomites through these federal agencies are demons. That's exactly because that's exactly how they're exhibiting, how they're portraying themselves to be, right? By exhibiting demonic behavior. Okay, by just attacking people, man, unjustifiably, and then justifying it but through these white lies, okay, such as Alex Preddy, threatening the cops, which was threatening the ICE agent, which is a goddamn lie on behalf of DJT, because the video evidence from the very first video I played in this lesson. All right, for to expose those lies, man. So these devils are blatantly lying, mainly on behalf of this current U.S. presidential, this current U.S. presidential, office. All right. Case in point, just to further perpetrate a fraud. That people that opposes this current agenda in place are domestic terrorists, and it's not working, man. All right. So according to this current U.S. presidential administration, that's the case in terms of people how they deem to be, in terms of how people are supposedly domestic terrorists for opposing this covert federal agent operation, through ICE and the Customs and Border Patrol. In any way, through either recording, marching, protesting, especially recording or being seen in their vicinity with a weapon. So they're just making up shit, man. And those claims, okay, are in opposition, in direct opposition to these constitutional rights that people supposedly have. So I'm gonna do now. I'm going to segue over to, speaking of essay graping. I'm gonna segue over to this next article. It's on balleralert.com, and it says Louisiana ICE officer pleads guilty to sexually abusing woman in federal custody. Former detention officer admitted to repeatedly sexual abuse of Nicaraguan detainee at ICE facility, and that's tribe of Naphtali. Okay, all right. Specifically, the Central American Indians between Nicaragua and Paraguay. All right, which will predominantly be the tribe of Naphtali. All right. So it says an ICE officer sexually abused a detainee at a Louisiana detention facility, according to federal court records. Salaki, it says a former ICE detention officer in Louisiana has pleaded guilty to sexually abusing a woman held in federal custody, confirming months of misconduct inside an immigration detention facility where he was supposed to ensure safety and oversight. David Corvell, age 56, admitted in federal court that he repeatedly sexually abused a Nicaraguan woman detained at the South Louisiana ICE Processing Center while he was employed there. The abuse occurred over several months while the woman was under his direct supervision, placing her in a position where consent was legally impossible. All right, so it says prosecutor stated that Corvell used his authority to gain access to the woman and violated facility rules by bringing her food, letters, and personal items, including photographs of her daughter. Investigators also detailed how Corvell arranged for others to act as lookouts while the abuse took place, including incidents inside a janitorial closet within a facility. All right, so it says after staff members observed Corvell leaving a restricted area with a detainee, an internal investigation was launched. During questioning, Corvell initially denied the allegations before later confessing to the sexual abuse during an interview with federal investigators. Corvell was released on a $10,000 bond and now faces sentencing on April 10th. The charge carries a maximum sentence of 15 years in federal prison and a potential fine of up to $250,000. Now, grape is supposed to be a serious offense. And why would they let a known and confirmed rapist walk free off of a $10,000 bond? Because America Babylon the Great is the epitome of Esau Edom's, or it's the epitome and reflection of Esau Edom's tyranny and corruption. All right. And further also confirms they don't give a shit about you women. So all you promiscuous Jezebel harlots, mainly the tribes, prophesied in Amos 7:17. Okay, you're gonna be food out here, man. You're not covered by the blood of the Lamb. Okay, so there's not the time to be a harlot. If you don't have a husband, pray for a righteous man of the Lord, Yahweh Shemeshai, okay, to be sent to you as a husband. Okay, or for you to be led to that man, as as it says in Isaiah 32:2. Those very men, okay, are going to be going to serve as a covering to you women. All right, mainly of your tribes, specifically of your tribes, the only women that the Lord cares about, the nation of Israel. All right, so are you haughty, proud daughters of Zion, okay, that are emulating the wicked mindset of the common oppressor Esau Edom. All right, if you don't repent, you're going to get caught up in these sad judgments, including what happened to this Naphtali woman, man. All right, being raped for months just in exchange for her to possibly see her daughter. So let's look at this devil, man. Let's get a photo of this devil that's raping this Jake woman. All right, because more of these reports of these federal agents and even law enforcement personnel members are starting to come to the light. All right, so look this devil up. David Corvell. right, so this devil right here. All right, so you see here this Edomite. So in late December 2025, 56-year-old David Corvell, a contract detention officer at the South Louisiana ICE Processing Center in Basel, Louisiana, entered a guilty plea in federal court. He admitted to sexually abusing a woman from Nicaragua who was being held in ICE custody at the facility. You see that? So not a coincidence that this raping of this woman for months, for some time, happened under ICE custody. See? So now it's further coming out on what ICE, and these other federal agents, and even law enforcement personnel is doing to you women, man, especially your women. This is on newsbreak.com. Slakia. It says ICE detains U.S. citizen despite birth certificate proof. All right. It says Dulce Consuelo Diaz Morales remains under ICE surveillance despite being released from detention, as her lawyers worry her case could set a dangerous precedent for other U.S. citizens if not dismissed. Diaz Morales, who was born in Maryland on October 18, 2003, has provided extensive documentation proving her U.S. citizenship by birth. Her legal team has submitted a certified Maryland birth certificate, contemporaneous hospital records from Laurel Regional Hospital, affidavits from individuals present at her birth, elementary school records, and Maryland public health immunization records dating back to infancy. Dulce Consuelo Diaz Morales is a United States citizen by birth. She was born in Maryland on October 18, 2003. That fact is supported by a certified Maryland birth certificate, contemporaneous hospital records from Laurel Regional Hospital, affidavits from individuals who were at her birth, elementary school records, and Maryland public health immunization records beginning in infancy, says Victoria Slatton Sanabria and Associates. All right, so they illegally apprehended her just because she has an Hispanic last name and she looks like a so-called Hispanic of the Northern Kingdom. So if they're not graping you women of the tribes, they're brutalizing you. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this next precept in Lamentations 5 and 11. It reads, "They ravished the women in Zion and the maids in the cities of Judah." All right. It says in 2 Ezra 5 and 42, the judgment of the Lord, Yahweh Shemeshai, is like a wheel. Okay, meaning what? It comes, the judgment of the Lord, Yahweh Shemeshai, comes full circle. Okay, in a similar fashion. So just like our people were being, like it says in Ecclesiastes 1 and 9, there's nothing new under the sun. So just like our people are being brutalized and raped right now, and mainly our women in that case, same thing happened in chattel slavery. Esau was having our way with our women, man. Okay, he's buck breaking the men in front of the entire family to break the will of the wives of Zion, of the family, to incite fear in their heart to be subjected under Esau's subjection. Okay, just like that movie, I believe it's Goodbye Uncle Tom, where they were these Edomite men were raping our women, man. Okay, so there's nothing new under the sun. They were having our way with our women back then, and they're doing the same thing right now. Because we're in the main place for captivity, America, Babylon the Great, subject to payments, as it says in Baruch 3 and 8, waxing old in this place. Okay, percent of Baruch 3 and 10. All right, so Lamentations 5 and 11. They ravished the women in Zion and the maids in the city of Judah. And if they weren't directly raping our women, they would make our women, they would force feed our women to breastfeed the little Edomite babies. See that? So our people have already been guinea pigs for Esau's, pleasure and chaotic, aspirations, and pleasures. All right. So now, our women are having to find out the hard way. Specifically, 2/3 of our women, okay, they're not covered by the blood of the Lamb because they continue to envy their oppressor. So a lot of you so-called Negro and indigenous women like to bleach your skin, like Serena Williams, Indy Ari. You know what I'm saying? The list goes on and on. Put, blue or green contacts in your eyes, dye your hair blonde, because you hate yourself, man, under the psychological conditioning, of Stockholm syndrome, okay, which is the psychological condition of developing love for the slave master. So that's what keeps you docile, okay, and unconscientious of who your enemy is, your common oppressor, Esau Edom. So when he comes in like a thief in the night, when he comes in like a lion, okay, you are vulnerable prey. All right. Ultimately, these things are happening because of one of the curses. All right. But before I play this next video, I'm gonna get the next precept. In 2nd Esdras 15 and 16, I'm going to start at verse 14. Second Esdras 15 and 14 reads, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein. Woes and war, destruction." Second Esdras 15 and 15. "For the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hands." All right. So people are standing up, in the midst of civil war, fighting amongst themselves, man, with these mighty swords, these firearms, all right, and so forth. All right. Taking matters into their own hands in the midst of this these violent uprisings through the sedition. All right. But then the beginning phases of this civil war in America, Babylon the Great. So here's the point of 2nd Esdras 15 and 16. "For there shall be sedition among men and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and of course their actions shall stand in their power." All right. So, these citizens, mainly these U.S. citizens of America, Babylon the Great, are rising up against these tyrannical, corrupt governments, including the kings. All right. Or in this case, rather, the people within the political sector, even rising up against their kings, not regarding their kings nor princes, such as the Minnesota governor Tim Walz opposing DJT and his ICE paramilitary by reportedly set to impose or deploy National Guard troops to defend the Minnesota citizens from ICE. Because what's going on over there in Minnesota is just another testing ground as to what's to happen throughout all 50 states in America, Babylon the Great, especially within these borderlands. All right. So we'll read this again, 2nd Esdras 15 and 16. "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and of course their actions shall stand in their power." All right. So people taking matters into their own hands, okay, by waging war against, these federal agents, which is carnality, but this is a further fulfillment of biblical prophecy. All right. Over the conditions being played out on earth that are greatly affecting, people. All right. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna segue over to Salakia. We get Isaiah 14 and 4. Isaiah 14 and 4 reads that, "Thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how hath the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased. Okay. So the might of the king of Babylon is Esau Edom of this golden city, and gold because gold is symbolic of prosperity. That's why a lot of these nations of the heathen want to come over here and get a piece off of Esau's pie. Okay, by enjoying that so-called American dream. All right. So let's look up the word for Babylon in H894, which is the Hebrew word babal, meaning confusion. See that? Babal or Babylon means confusion. That's how we know America is the virgin daughter of Babylon, mystery Babylon. Okay, the mystery land of confusion. All right, where a man can act like a woman, chop off his rod and stones, and act like a woman, and vice versa. Where Esau says you have rights, constitutional rights, supposedly backed up by his government, but when you try to exercise those rights, all right, he imposes military force. What kind of shit is that? That's confusion, man. That's why these people are protesting and they're rioting. Okay, with these now up and coming violent uprisings against Esau's government in America, Babylon the Great, because they're confused, they're distraught, they're confused, they're angry. Okay, they're distressed, and they want some justice, man, to serve as clarity that Esau's not giving them. So now they're having to look to try to get that through carnal means, and that's all a part of biblical prophecy. This further confirms or further identifies America as Babylon the Great. All right. The great land of confusion. Okay. So this is speaking of confusion, we get St. James 3 and 16. I'm starting at verse 15. All right, St. James 3 and 15 reads, "This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish." See, so the wisdom, knowledge, understanding of the Lord is of righteousness. He further speaks about it in 1 Samuel 2 and 3, because it's from above. Okay, that's a man of wisdom, knowledge, understanding that's going to bring forth the elect of Israel to the kingdom of heaven. As it says in Wisdom of Solomon 6 and 20 on down. Okay. It lines up with Isaiah 33 and 6. For wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of these times. Okay. Not the earthly, sensual, devilish aspect of formal wisdom, which is a part of Esau's wine and fornication, his Western philosophy. Okay, including his democracy, bureaucracy, technocracy, okay, politics, entertainment, religion especially. You see? That's that earthly, sensual, devilish wisdom that has people confused, especially people that have conformed to it and not benefiting off of it, especially in these last days. That's what was resulting in them rising up against this devil, right? Through protestings and violent uprisings. So here's the point of St. James 3 and 16. It says, "For where envy and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work." That's fire. I got to read that again from the top. St. James 3 and 16. "For where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work." See that? And envy and strife is going on here in America, Babylon the Great. Especially Esau Edom envying Jake for being predestinated and preordained by the Lord Yahweh, the Heavenly Father Yahweh, to be His chosen and peculiar people. When Esau was the one that sold that blessing to our forefather Jacob for a piece of raw pottage, raw meat. That's why the subclane white man Esau Edom prefers to eat his meat unprepared, okay, and raw. Hence, bloody meat, through medium rare steaks and so forth. You see, when he's the one that sold his blessing for a piece of uncooked and unprepared meat, man, raw meat, because he's a brute beast, man. So it says in at the end of Wisdom of Solomon, 2nd chapter, through envy of the devil came death into the world. Because Esau, Edom, self-proclaimed white man, is envious of Jacob being preordained to be predestinated to be the Lord's chosen holy people. Chosen, holy, and peculiar people. So as Elder Apostle Gabar brought out, through some kind of a Rothschild document, the Rothschilds, the Zionist bankers of the biblical nation, the biblical family of Amalek of the nation of Edom, are trying to literally take back their blessing of Jacob in a carnal way, which is ridiculous and asinine. So you're not going to be able to achieve that because you cannot overthrow the will of the Lord, Yahweh Shemeshai, who preordained, and predestinated the salvation of the Israelites, mainly the elect of Israel. That's why there's such turmoil and chaos and mayhem in the world, mainly in America, Babylon the Great, the main place of the captivity of the descendants of Jacob, through the envy and strife that is further produce confusion. See? That's why people out here frantic and sporadic and hopeless, because that's Esau's current condition. You see? So let me get this quick precept on that note. Wisdom of Solomon. (1811) says, a master and a servant were punished after one manner, and like as the king, so suffered the common person. All right. So either the vast majority of this world, marveling after this beast system, pursuing Revelation 13:3, looking to emulate the common oppressor, Esau, Edom. Okay, you are being greatly affected by the current decay of his wicked rulership, the sinful kingdom, America, Babylon the Great, for trusting in this place. All right. So this is back to St. James, finish that out. St. James 3:16 from the top. For where envy and strife is, there's confusion in every evil work. It's going to continue, verse 17. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Okay? And Esau is full of hypocrisy. And in the case in point, in terms of constitutional rights, he'll tell you, he has imposed or established constitutional rights, but when people within these U.S. citizens try to act on those constitutional rights, once again, he meets them with military force, more so in these last days. Why? Because he has but a short time to come, to come down to great wrath, to force his satanic NWO agenda on the earth. All right, through his military, through the carnal means, to his military. St. James 3:18, and the fruit of righteousness, Slaki, and the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. Okay, by doing the things that brings forth peace, by doing the things that please the Lord, man, by rehearsing the righteous laws, statutes, commandments. Okay, which is only a righteous luxury for the only righteous and holy peculiar nation that the Heavenly Father created through his only begotten Son, and that nation is Israel. Okay, the nation that belongs to the Prince of Peace, Yahushua, who bought them with a price through his bloodshed. All right, St. James 3:18 from the top, and the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace, as Yahushua said in St. John 16:33. In the world, and me shall have peace, in the world you shall have tribulation. Roughly paraphrasing. That's why there's no peace in the world, man. Because the earth was given to the hands of the wicked. The only peace that we have within this world is within the comforter of these scriptures, the Holy Spirit. Symbolic of the wisdom, knowledge, understanding of the scriptures, which Yahushua embodies all of that. Because he is the word. So this is why the majority of the world is being affected by the plagues of the Lord, Yahweh Shemeshai's indignation, because they don't believe in Yahweh. If for those who claim to believe in a Messiah, believes in the false perception of Messiah, Cesare Borgia, that is associated with strong satanic vibration, associated with Edomite supremacy, okay, through Roman iconoclasm, okay, including whitewashing the images, the ancient images of the Lord, Yahweh, all right, and his only begotten Son, and the saints of Israel, okay, making the dark images of the saints lighter complected, to Edomite complexion. That's a part of your deception, man, of your iniquity, your latest sin, wickedness that you drink like water. Okay, it speaks about in the book of Job. Okay, case in point. This is St. James 3:18, and the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace, and rulers of the darkness of this world are not making peace through righteousness by upholding the ways of righteousness, but rather their own bylaws and draconian measures to achieve their own wicked, covetous aspirations of sitting in the seat of God. We prophesied in 2 Thessalonians 2:4 through Edomite supremacy by chipping everyone, which is a stupid plan because it's not going to work. As it says in St. Matthew 24:24, if at all possible, you could deceive the very elect. All right. So this is Isaiah 54:17. And it reads, no weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. This is a heritage of the servants of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yeshai, and their righteousness is of me, said the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yeshai. So in order to be that righteousness and peace is synonymous, okay, that only pertains to one nation. That's the heritage of the servants of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yeshai, which are the saints, the Israelites, the sanctified nation of Israel. Okay, the so-called Negro, Latino, Native American Indians, Israelite foreigners, so that same bloodline. Okay, so the elect of those, the heritage of the servants of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yeshai, the elect, will have no weapon formed against them to prosper, including Esau's actual sword, okay, including his modern-day sword, his firearm, and so forth. Okay. So speaking of sword, this is why the Esau represents the sword on the left-hand side of the Lord that is being unleashed upon 2/3 Israelites, wicked Israelites, okay, who refuse to repent, including you YNs, you YNBs, you gangbangers, you whoremongers, you pimps, you harlots, okay, the other evildoers of our people, okay, indulging in things, worldly affairs that are contrary to the righteous instruction, okay, of what's written to please the Lord, man, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yeshai, to be deemed worthy enough to be spared from the plagues of his indignation. So this is Revelation 6:4. It says, and there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given to him a great sword. And Esau, Edom, has been further revealed through this blessing, lined up with Genesis 27. Okay, to obtain the fatness of the land through his blessing, the sword. See, this is why America has been at war for around 90% of her existence from 1776 during the time of her independence from Mother Britain up until now, man. Through all these proxy wars, okay, i.e. the Iranian proxy wars through Hezbollah, through the Houthis, okay, through the North Korean proxy war through South Korea, the China proxy war through Taiwan. Okay, all these the first two major wars, World War I, World War II, the Philippine War, the Seminole Wars against the northern tribes, Battle of Wounded Knee against the northern tribes. Both accounts of the Battle of Wounded Knee during the 19th century and during the 1970s. The Seminole Wars against the tribe of Reuben. All right, and there's so many more wars through proxy wars and major wars, man. Okay, that you devils have perpetuated. This is prophesied in Psalm 58. How you weigh the violence of the earth in your hands through your blessing that has further exposed you by revealing that you are Esau, Edom in the Bible. All right. So we're going to play a few more of these videos and a couple of more articles, and that'll pretty much be it.
60 Minutes Overtime.
This week on 60 Minutes, we reported on President Trump's mass deportation campaign in American cities. We went to Minneapolis, where immigration agents continue operations despite local opposition. Protesters have swarmed as agents make arrests, and some of those arrested are American citizens. 1 week after ICE officer Jonathan Ross shot and killed Renee Good, tensions remain high. But Good is not the only person to have been shot by federal agents during this nationwide immigration crackdown.
I just looked down and I looked at my hand, it was full of blood. That's when I realized, like, I actually got shot. And I just went like that, and like I saw like blood gushing out like a fountain. I'm just like, oh my God, like I got shot. You like the green ones, right?
Marimar Martinez is a teacher's assistant at a Montessori school in Chicago. Last October, Martinez, a U.S. citizen, was driving to her church when she came upon immigration agents on patrol as part of Operation Midway Blitz. She began broadcasting on Facebook Live, warning in Spanish that immigration agents were in the neighborhood. For 20 minutes, she says she honked her horn and tailed them.
You don't think honking and following for 20 minutes is provoking them?
No.
This haughty daughter of Zion proudly said no, but she was clearly lying through her teeth. Obviously, she was antagonizing those ICE agents, man, by tailing them and honking for 20 minutes. So she got what she deserved. She was very fortunate she didn't get put to death. Another thing, too, going back to women, man. You don't understand what time we're living in. It says in Ecclesiastes 3:8, how we're living in a time of war. And women are casualties of war. That's why it's been coming out that these ICE agents have been raping our women. And it's now being reported because it's been happening. Now it's just being further exposed through this modern day advanced technology. Okay, you women, you're gonna keep playing games, and you're gonna run into them snares, man. So next video, another Northern Kingdom woman being harassed at a Walmart. It looks like, yeah, she being randomly harassed by ICE agents at a Walmart. You don't know what they're harassing her for, so I'm gonna go ahead and play the audio.
What's here? What country? Was you born here? Was you born here, ma'am? What country was you born in? You from here? What's here? What country? Was you born here? Was you born here, ma'am?
So they sound like a nigga, of course, damn jigaboo, knee scraping nigga, sellout, ICE agent, pressing the Northern Kingdom woman, demanding that she prove that she's a U.S. citizen by asking where she's from, and then you can see how aggressive the nigga approached her, and you can tell she don't speak English. Okay, so she like confused, like what the fuck is going on? You can tell she's confused, man. Really startled. I'm pretty sure she knows what ICE is. And she's walking by herself. So it says ICE runs up to random lady accusing her of being a migrant or immigrant. All right. So what the devil are doing, man? If you look like if you fit the quote unquote demographic profile, which is bureaucratic talk for racial profiling, as a so-called Negro or indigenous, you are liable to be stopped and demanded to prove your U.S. citizenship. So that's why the elders been telling us, man, if that happens to us, just do what Haushai told us to command us to do and agree without an adversary quickly. Show them your damn ID. They're gonna run it. They're not gonna find shit. Okay. You know what I'm saying? As long as you clean as a whistle, you got nothing to worry about, man. You have nothing to be worried about. Okay. See, Jake get caught up in being, in these cases with these federal agents and law enforcement personnel because they want to exhibit some kind of pride to show that they have rights. You have no goddamn rights, man. If you understood the privacy, you understand why you don't have rights. All right. Says Jeremiah 5:19. We were prophesied to be to wind up within the captivity of our enemies, mainly Esau, Edom, our arch nemesis of all enemies, the self-proclaimed white man, and his entire nation to be their captives. Okay. So we don't belong to ourselves in the main place for our captivity, America, Babylon the Great. All right. This next video on Newsbreak entitled "Video says Young Woman Sheds Tears Over the Uncertainty of Being a U.S. Citizen Under Trump. I'm afraid to be alive." All right. Says a raw and emotional video posted on Instagram, Instagram by content creator Indigo at the last It Girl is gaining widespread attention online. Indigo's video amplifies growing fears among immigrant and minority communities in the United States and heightened immigration enforcement and political polarization. Salakia. In the short video, Indigo, who identifies as a U.S.-born American citizen of Puerto Rican heritage, tribe of Ephraim, describes living in a constant state of fear, unsure whether safety exists inside or outside her home. All right, this is a woman here, Ephraimite chick. So she said, "I'm afraid to leave my house. I'm afraid to be in my house. I'm afraid to be alive," she says, explaining that she and others have packed escape bags and made contingency plans in case they are forced to flee suddenly. How should I say? Pray that your flight come out in the winter. And we're within the wintertime, man, when these devils are coming down with great wrath through these covert ICE operations, okay? Within the midst of this winter storm plague, putting a lot of people to death, within the midst of this government shutdown deadline this Friday, the 30th. You see? So what she said was spiritual. She said, "I'm afraid to be in my house. I'm afraid to be alive." Well, that's according to the curses, man. Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28 and 65 or 66. I'm going to bring it out real quick. Deuteronomy 28 and 65 says, "And among these nations shall thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord Yahweh by Shem Shah shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind." So that Ephraimite woman just expressed was a further fulfillment of this prophecy here, of the prophecy of this curse. The friend identifies who we are, man. Because there's no other demographic of people who are suffering these curses except for the demographic of people known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians. Deuteronomy 28 and 66, "And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have none assurance of thy life." And this is exactly what Ephraimite woman was expressing. Okay? How she was afraid to leave her house and afraid to be alive because she realizes her people are being persecuted. All right, here's this the Shedemite entertainer Billie Eilish, whatever her name is. Billie Eilish slams Trump administration over ICE violence. "We no longer feel safe in our own homes, on our streets." And this chick is most likely an Edomite. Tell she got demons in her, in her soul, and you look in her eyes. Okay, and she's a so-called white woman, an Edomite, appearing to be an Edomite, and she's saying that she no longer feels safe in her own home, speaking on behalf of all Americans. But this is being expressed from her own individual thoughts. Okay, so now these entertainers starting to feel it, man. They're starting to express it. Speaking of Edomite, Let me play this quick video. Play probably a few minutes of it.
These eyes blink.
These eyes wink. And these eyes help those eyes see their best.
With a quality eye exam and 2 pairs of glasses at one great price.
An eye exam plus 2 progressives for $195 at America's Best.
My next guest says that she has firsthand experience dealing with ICE when she was pepper sprayed, arrested, shackled, and taken to an ICE detention center in Minneapolis. Patty O'Keefe says she and a friend were following ICE agents in her car as they made arrests during the federal crackdown in her community last week.
See, so another foolish woman antagonizing these federal agents who are already on edge, okay, who already been given an assignment to shoot first and ask questions later, but you want to antagonize them because you women are foolish, man, because of pride. That's going to get you that's going to get a lot of you Western women, especially the women of Zion, or the 2/3 put to death. Okay, antagonizing these federal agents. Okay, the foot soldiers of Esau, the foot soldiers of Amalek. All right. So I'm going to fast forward to the section that I wanted to focus on. Right, it's 4-minute mark here.
Tell us what happened. You said
she's not a bad-looking woman. I don't know if she's married or not, but the Lord don't give a shit about that, man. He don't care about physical beauty. If you're out of order as a woman, or you're out of order in general, especially as a woman, okay, you can be dealt with. All right. If you're out of order in righteousness, the Lord can deal with you, man, by sending evil angels towards you. Towards anybody. Okay.
Say that in the car ride to the ICE facility, an agent said some pretty disturbing things to you.
Yeah, the same agent that sprayed pepper spray into the vent of my car. When I got into the car, the 3 ICE agents immediately started mocking and taunting me. One took a picture of me and showed the other ones laughing. And then, yes, that one agent said, you guys got to stop obstructing us. That's why that lesbian is dead, referring to Renee Good.
Yeah, so speaking of Renee Good and death angels, speaking of death angels, rather, okay, they're pursuing Psalm 78 and 49, Proverbs 17:11, how the Lord, Yahweh Shemeshai, the real reason the Lord Yahweh Shemeshai allowed Renee Good, 37-year-old Renee Good, would appear to be a so-called white woman, to get recently put to death over there in Minnesota because she was a damn Dyke Tyson, man. She was a carpet muncher. And the Lord, indulging in that alternative lifestyle that the Lord opposes. Because that's a sin punishable by death. All right. For one, it opposes, it goes against, being fruitful and multiplying. Okay. Regarding procreation, the Lord told our forefather Jacob and our other forefathers to be fruitful and multiply. What's the fruit of a man? His sperm. How can he do that with man-on-man action and woman-on-woman action? So that's the real reason why the Lord Yahweh Shemeshai allowed Renee Good to be put to death. So this woman here, what appears to be an Edomite woman, was saying how one of the ICE agents told her, well, I'm not trying to rewind a little bit. All right.
Ones laughing. And then, yes, that one agent said, you guys got to stop obstructing us. That's why that lesbian is dead, referring to Renee Good.
See that? So these federal agents are not playing, man. Esau's not playing. Because they're operating off of Esau's operation, okay, which is targeting Jake. And anybody gets in the way, like this woman said, by obstructing the mission of these federal agents, can get dealt with too. Because Esau's not just coming after Jake; he's coming after everyone who he perceives to come to oppose him. Okay. And matter of fact, we get this. Let me get this next video on that. Let me see if I can find it. Damn. Yeah, there was a matter of fact. there's an article that I came across that I had access to earlier. I'd actually sent it to myself, but anyway, let me go ahead and find that article because there was it appears to be like either like some kind of Asian looking man or like a Japhetic. He's either from Moab, modern day Chinese, or Japhet, it's like a modern day Filipino or something like that. All right, and he goes by the last name of Tao. And Esau, here it is. So on Bring Me the News platform, it says target of viral ICE raid, and St. Paul has been in prison since 2024. One of the two men that ICE agents were seeking when they arrested an innocent, half-naked Haman grandfather in St. Paul last week has been in prison custody for more than a year, state records confirms. After the arrest of 57-year-old Chongli Saleh Scott Thao, a U.S. citizen who was taken outside into freezing weather while dressed in shorts and Crocs and covered by a blanket, sparked outrage on Sunday, January 18th. Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said agents were conducting a targeted operation seeking two convicted sex offenders living with Tao at the address, so they say. So they fucking say. And that Tao matched the description of the targets. And what is that description? See, when they say you match the description, what they're saying in a bureaucratic way is that we're racially profiling you. They're racially profiling you, man. They're racially profiling a targeted demographic of people, mainly brown people. So that's not. So you other nations. That's not. You other nations of no exception to that rule of being brown. Okay. Once again, Esau is carrying out an ethnic cleansing operation, masqueraded as migrant surge / border crisis operation. So it says Tao's family subsequently said the DHS's claims are false, saying that Tao, his son, his grandson, and his daughter-in-law are the only people who live in the home, and that none of them know the men who the agents were looking for. But it turns out that the 52-year-old Moa has not been taking sanctuary, but has instead been in the Minnesota Department of Corrections facility since this September 2024, following a kidnapping conviction. So said on Tuesday, the DHS issued a public appeal to find the two men, Lu Moa and Kong Meng Vong, claiming they are undocumented immigrants from Laos who have been taking sanctuary in St. Paul. So a key word there is claiming. Says Moa was convicted on a kidnapping charge stemming from incidents in 2023 in which he was accused of taking his ex-wife's 6-year-old daughter. Court records show that he was also convicted of criminal sexual conduct in 92. All right. As for Tao, his 5-year-old grandson was napping on a couch and woke up crying in fear as agents stormed into the home, according to a GoFundMe organized by his family. ICE came to my brother-in-law Sally's apartment, broke down the door, trashed the place, handcuffed him, and put a gun to his daughter-in-law's head. His sister-in-law, Loenzi Moa, wrote in a statement shared by Hmong American Experience on social media. They did not allow him to put on proper clothing and forced him outside in freezing weather. And you can see that on YouTube and all throughout social media. Okay. ICE drove him around for nearly an hour, questioned him and fingerprinted him. Only after all that did they realize he had no criminal history and no reason to be detained. They then dropped him back off at his apartment like nothing happened. And when you watch the video on YouTube, this man was saying how they didn't even apologize for this shit, man. So this is how Esau's moving, man. He's coming down with great wrath, knowing that he has but a short time. Okay. So that's one report, all right, on that. But so now let's go back to JD Vance. All right, this is on Newsbreak entitled J.D. Vance Stuns with Claim ICE Agent Who Deleted Woman Shares Trump's Absolute Immunity. Meaning what? He's advocating full immunity for these federal agents to continue to shoot first and ask questions later, even at the expense of the lives of U.S. citizens, including legal documented U.S. citizens. Okay? So speaking of Vance, I'm going to segue over to X. And we'll get to some comments he made on this 5-year-old Jake that got apprehended by ICE and had his devil J.D. Vance justified it or caught himself justifying it. All right. So as soon as it loads up, I'm gonna play the video. It says ICE detains a 5-year-old because the father escaped arrest. Your thoughts on what J.D. Vance had to say about that?
Year-old was not arrested, that his dad was an illegal alien, and then when they went to arrest his illegal alien father, the father ran. So the story is that ICE detained a 5-year-old, and I'm a father of a 5-year-old, actually, a 5-year-old little boy, and I think to myself, oh my God, this is terrible. How did we arrest a 5-year-old? Well, I do a little bit more follow-up research, and what I find is that the 5-year-old was not arrested, that his dad was an illegal alien, and then when they went to arrest his illegal alien father, the father ran. So the story is that ICE detained a 5-year-old. Well, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to let a 5-year-old child freeze to death? Are they not supposed to arrest an illegal alien in the United States of America? If the argument is that you can't arrest people who have violated our laws because they have children, then every single parent is going to be completely given immunity from ever being the subject of law enforcement. That doesn't make any sense. No one thinks that makes any sense.
Okay, so that's what that devil said. Okay, now
I'm a father of a 5-year-old.
Let's get the other report on this 5-year-old Jake boy. Okay, being detained by I.C.E. Okay.
He and his father were apprehended by ICE in their driveway. A 5-year-old has been detained by ICE in the latest round of raids that have plagued Minnesota as outrage over the killing of Renee Nicole Good continues to mount. Preschooler Liam Ramos was returning home from school on Tuesday when he and his father were apprehended by ICE in their driveway. The superintendent of Liam's school drove to their home when she heard about the incident and alleges that she saw an agent take Liam out of the car and tell him to knock on the door of the house asking to be let in. She believes they were using the child as bait to see if anyone else was home. An attorney representing the family says they have an active asylum case and entered the U.S. at an official port of entry. The Department of Homeland Security's Assistant Secretary said in a statement that ICE was conducting a targeted operation to arrest Liam's father. A 5-year-old has been detained by ICE in the latest round of raids that have plagued Minnesota as outrage over the killing of Renee Nicole Good continues to mount. Preschooler Liam Ramos was returning home from school on Tuesday when he and his father were apprehended by ICE in their driveway. The superintendent of Liam's school drove to their home when she heard about the incident and alleges that she saw an agent take Liam out of the car and tell him to knock on the door of the house asking to be let in. She believes they were using the child as bait to see if anyone else was home. An attorney representing the family says they have an active asylum case and entered the U.S. at an official port of entry. The Department of Homeland Security's Assistant Secretary said in a statement that ICE was conducting a targeted operation to arrest Liam's father, whom she called an illegal alien. A 5-year-old has been detained by ICE in the latest round of raids that have plagued Minnesota as outrage over the killing of Renee Nicole Good continues to mount. Preschooler Liam Ramos was returning home from school on Tuesday when he and his father were apprehended by ICE in their driveway. The superintendent of Liam's school drove to their home when she heard about the incident and alleges that she saw an agent take Liam out of the car and tell him to knock on the door of the house asking to be let in. She believes they were using the child as bait to see if anyone else was home. An attorney representing the family says they have an active asylum case and entered the U.S. at an official port of entry. The Department of Homeland Security's Assistant Secretary said in a statement that ICE was conducting a targeted operation to.
And this bitch looks like a damn devil. Look at her eyes, man. Lifeless damn devil. All right, so she claimed on behalf of DHS they're carrying out a particular operation that they just did, that woman narrated. All right. So, and according to that witness, that school superintendent that goes to that 5-year-old Jake boy Liam Ramos school, witness how Esau is looking to use him as bait to try to lure anybody else out of the home. That's not what JD Vance was reporting on. Yeah, of course, because he was bringing forth the narratives, talking narratives of Esau's agenda. Okay, that's why people go. That's why people are rioting and losing their goddamn minds, because you devils are ruling, man. Okay, what you're doing to people, especially our people. Okay, so this is speaking of rioting. We'll pull up this this video. I thought I had it pulled up. Damn, man, what the fuck? I could have sworn I had it pulled up. Basically, it was just there's a video that I thought I had saved of 1,000. Matter of fact, let me see something real quick. I guess I didn't save it. Well, anyway, I mean, there was a video. There's a video that's gonna play on X of 1,000 or like thousands of people. Matter of fact, let me look it up real quick. Let's play this video. These are thousands of people in Minnesota chanting I.C.E Minnesota. Now, there's a report that I thought I had saved where there was a man that was narrating. He was like, where all these people come from? Well, I don't know if he was asking a rhetorical question or not, but we understand those who are privy to Esau's satanic devices that he uses, he often likes to use George Soros' Open Society Foundation's protesters, of these paid protesters / actors and crisis actors and agent provocateurs to get out there and act like they're protesting, even though there's a lot of people out there sincerely protesting because they don't know how else to oppose the wickedness of Esau's tyrannical and corrupt government. All right, so they go out there and they protest, and they think their voice is going to make a difference. And really, what they're doing is they're being further categorized as domestic terrorists, because what Esau is considering this as agonistic, antagonizing behavior. Okay, so now that JD Vance, speaking on behalf of DJT, mentioned how these federal agents have been given full immunity. Okay, in the midst of cracking down on these people, these U.S. citizens, okay, people in America, including U.S. citizens, who appear to obstruct their so-called covert migrant or their so-called covert immigration operation, okay, can be met with force. So, hey, man, a lot of these, so now what we're starting to witness is that Esau's starting to shoot people. I was talking about that about a couple of weeks ago. I think I made this mention during camp or during a lesson. Me and the brothers down here in El Paso did. And I mentioned how eventually, I remember where I said it. I think we've been to Mexico when I brought this out. And I said how eventually Esau is going to transition from tear gas and pepper spray and metal bullets or rubber bullets to actual full-fledged metal shrapnels. Meaning what? Metal bullets, man. Actual bullets. And that's exactly what's happening right now. He's literally shooting legal, documented U.S. citizens, and then justifying it with zero accountability, with no accountability. So this is a further foreshadowing of civil war, because we are in the beginning phases of civil war. It's only going to get worse. All right, because this devil's empire is crumbling.
Carolyn,
Like they just have to hold it a little more taut.
Shit, man, easily, man. Just looking at that, man, it look like you're looking at no damn thousand, man. It look like, I'm being very lenient with this number. It looks like at least 1 million people out there, man. And they're out there in frigid temperatures of -10 to 30 degree weather, okay, of negative wind chill over there, and it's still standing out there. So that's another major ensign that this devil is losing grips on his rulership, because he's not fit to rule. Because the only proper way to rule is through righteousness. All right. It said 50,000 showed up on the 23rd. That wasn't. There's way more. There's way more than 50,000 out there, man. You know, as it seemed like, just looking at the footage, but nonetheless, there's another ensign of sedition, another ensign or prelude to sedition amongst men. Okay. Because of the wickedness you devils are doing, man. All right. This is on Newsbreak entitled "ICE Deletes Guards Reportedly Choked Man to Death at El Paso Detention Center." All right, and it was already reported by Democracy Now! By that journalist Amy Goodman, that these ICE agents been raping women in that migrant detention facility down here in El Paso on the Fort Bliss military base. So they're raping our women up in there, and now it came out that they choked a Manassite man to death, a so-called Cuban man to death up in there, by the name of Gerardo Lunes Campos. All right, so it says the Texas medical examiners reportedly plan to classify the recent death of Gerardo Lunes Campos, who was detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement last summer as a homicide, marking the latest apparent abuse at the hands of an agency that has been rampaging lawlessly through U.S. communities at the behest of President DJT. You see that? Why once again are they, these ICE agents, operating on behalf of the behest of DJT? Why? Because they are serving as his paramilitary, unofficial military force. Okay, that's losing more and more credibility. Okay, as the fatality starts to continue to rack up on their watch on behalf of DJT. Jump down. Says the employee said a doctor there is listing the preliminary cause of death as asphyxia due to neck and chest compression, which means Lunes Campos did not get enough oxygen because of pressure on his neck and chest. See that? So the devils get a lot of, they're getting away with a lot of wickedness off screen or off camera that is still coming to the light through this modern day advanced technology. And eyewitnesses, you see, the eyewitness, according to the Post, said he saw guards choking Luna's Campos and heard Luna's Campos repeatedly saying, no, no puedo respirar, Spanish for I can't breathe. Medical staff tried to resuscitate him for an hour, after which they took his body away. So this was similar to what happened to George Floyd. Okay. Jeanette Pagan Lopez, the mother of two of Lunas Campos' children, told the Post that she was contacted by agents from the FBI who said they were investigating Lunas Campos' death. I know it's a homicide, Lopez told the newspaper. The people that physically harmed him should be held accountable. So disturbing, U.S. Republican Annette Barragan out of California has said, she said, so disturbing, Barragan added, Republicans' excessive funding of ICE and DHS, along with Trump's pardons and claims of absolute immunity, are literally deleting people. Republicans remain silent or are openly okay with this. So now, she's playing that left wing, right wing paradigm because it came out that Chuck Schumer, in that article I read about with Chuck Schumer, had mentioned how the Democrats are speaking about how they no longer want to fund ICE. Okay, so Esau, this is another way Esau will use this left wing, right wing paradigm as another control, divide and conquer tactic as well. All right. As it says in Daniel 8:25, through his policies, he would destroy. Even I was talking about Antiochus Epiphanes. He was Antiochus Epiphanes was an Edomite nonetheless. All right, so these Edomites, okay, are following same suit or similar suit, okay, of using politics to destroy people. It's mentioned in Daniel 8:25. All right. So here's a man here, Campos. Man ICE custody's death is likely a homicide by agents, report says. So here's Campos right here, the Manassite, so-called Cuban. All right. Gerardo Lunas Campos. All right. So these devils are coming after everybody, man. It's not just Jake. This So on Newsbreak says ICE throws flashbang at family car as 6 kids hospitalized, including a 6-month-old baby. And that's similar to what Kyle of Secular Talk was reporting on. All right. So I'm not gonna access the article. That's pretty much the synopsis of what happened in that particular article. And I'm starting to continue to have connection issues. So, and these are just the ICE reports that I'm reporting on, that I have access to. All right, so I'm gonna wait till this connection. I'm gonna wait till the connection resumes. Out on Retazon, I bring out a few more articles. And on top of that, reminds me the beloved priest, Osmo Wath, out there in Dallas, did a lesson earlier on how there's Arizona. Let me see, there's an Arizona politician that was calling for sedition against the government. See if I can find that real quick. I have to do like a land back video on that. Anyway, so this is let me see. Yeah, so that's pretty much the point. So I'm gonna go ahead and get Isaiah 14. And 4. I'm going to read it from the top. It says, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, hath the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased. All right, and it says here in verse 5, the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai had broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers, all right, of the rulers of the darkness of this world, the throne of iniquity. Okay, the Amalekites, so the nation of Edom, the Zionist bankers. So the Lord has broken the staff of the wicked, man. And the scepter of the rulers representing Esau's power. Okay, through the Holy Spirit tearing down their strongholds and stumbling blocks of iniquity, sin upon sin. Okay, more so prevalent in America. Okay, which identifies America as a sinful kingdom. All right, so it's Isaiah 14 and 6. And it reads, he who smote the people in wrath with a continuous stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindereth. All right, so this devil's been smoting people in wrath with the continuous stroke of his sword, his blessing, which is how he's been ruling over the nations in anger, not just the nation of Israel, the holy, peculiar, chosen nation of Israel in anger, okay, but the nations, plural, all the nations, okay, and which we're starting to further see and witness now, more so now than ever before, man. So what happened to that man from, I believe he's from Laos, who was a U.S. citizen, but just because he didn't look like a standard U.S. citizen, as in an Edomite, a so-called white man, a self-proclaimed white man, okay, and he was supposedly tied to illegal immigrants. He got the short end of the stick. Got brought out in freezing, frigid, cold temperatures in his drawers with his grandson's blanket, and then dropped back off the same way, with no remorse, no accountability from Esau. Then these little Edomite women, following Esau around, these ICE agents specifically, antagonizing them and so forth. They're getting hemmed up. Well, Renee Good, a so-called white woman, she got shot to death, man, and so did the Edomite Alex Pretty. All right, which both of those last names I mentioned appear to be Edomites, but regarding political optics, it appear to be Edomites, and this is exactly how these Edomites in America are taking it. So they're starting to rise up, man. They're starting to take arms and starting to prepare war against this devil, against their own government that's supposed to be for them. That's just further confirms that the curses, okay, transitioning from Jake over to Edomites. It's prophesied in Deuteronomy 30 and 7. So now, which is why you're starting to experience what it's like to be a nigga, what it feels like to be a nigga and treated like a nigga, okay? Because what happened to Alex Pretty was nigga treatment. Isaiah 14 and 7, the whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. When you devils removed from power, man. It says in Revelation 11 and 18, destroy him who destroys the earth. Roughly paraphrasing. So this is Sirach 10. Let's start from the top. Go ahead and type it in. Sirach 10 and 1. A wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered. All right, prudent is like a synonym for wisdom, or wise. Sirach 10 and 2. Sirach 10 and 2. As the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers. And what manner of man the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein. You see that? So these mighty officers, these these foot soldiers for Esau Edom are just like him. Okay? Carrying out his will. Sirach 10 and 3. An unwise king destroyeth his people, But through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city should be inhabited. And the inhabitants of Esau Edom's beast system are not under any kind of prudent counsel. And this is what is fair to produce confusion, strife, mayhem, catastrophe as a result of your wickedness. This is Sirach 10 and 4. The power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, Yahweh by Hashem Yashai. And in due time, he will set over one that is profitable. Okay? So I'm going to skip down to, let me just type it in. Let me see, you know what? Let me see if I can just pull it up here. Yeah, that didn't work like I thought it would. Try to, let me just type it in. Sirach 10 and 10 says, the physician cutteth off a long disease, and he that is today a king, tomorrow shall die. Read that again. Sirach 10 and 10. The physician cutteth off a long disease. Now that the physician is Yahushai. And he that is today a king, tomorrow shall die. All right. Going to tell you Edomites going to fall like lightning, as Yahushai prophesied. The book of St. Luke. All right. Meaning you're a king right now, but you're going to lose your rulership very soon. That's what we're seeing. All right. So I'm ending it off on that note. Pray this lesson was for edifying, exhorting to elect. Give all praise, glory, infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom is the God of the living. Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Give me 1 second. Damn, man, this Esau, these damn feature updates, man. Anyway, here we go. All right, so hey, shalom to Akim and Shamar Ilatha La Akwath tuning in, man. At the water for tuning in, sticking with me. The water for the precepts, the water I couldn't get to him. See the brother out there in Jersey. Yahweh's Will and Testament put up Sirach 12 and 16. I'm going to bring it out. Sirach 12 and 16 says, an enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he imagined how to throw thee into a pit. He will weep with his eyes, but if he find opportunity, now the brother didn't put the rest of it, but that's all right. I'll go ahead and bring it up. I'll go ahead and read the rest of it here. Slakia. Sirach 12 and 16 says, an enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he imagined how to throw thee into a pit. He will weep with his eyes, but if he find opportunity, he would not be satisfied with blood. Exactly. All right. Esau's a bloodshedder, man. All right. It says, like it says in Psalm 55 and 23, bloody deceitful men shall not live out half their days. Sirach 12 and 17. If adversity come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first. And though he pretend to help thee, yet shall he undermine thee. There's a brother that put that up on the comment board. All right. I'm going to highlight it. All right. Yup, fire. Same brother put up Zechariah 11 and 5. Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty, and they that sell them say, Blessed be the Lord, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yashai. Well, Slaki, read it from the top. Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty, and they that sell them say, Blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. See? That's how they acted, man. Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. It lines up with the Psalm 73 and 8. That they speak lawfully concerning our oppression. Yep, brother said they're gonna act carnal. They acting carnal, man. They acting carnal more so now than ever before. Yep, fire. Saint brother put up St. Luke 12:51. Suppose ye that I'm come to give peace on earth, I tell you nay, but rather division. So it's Yahweh by Shemishah that's behind this great division in the earth. Okay, Edomite versus Jake, and vice versa. Egyptian against Egyptian, as is brought out in Isaiah 19:2 in the GNT. Okay, bringing forth civil war in modern day Egypt. Okay, between modern day bondman, modern day Egyptian, meaning modern day bondman against modern day bondman, as in, for example, liberal Edomite versus conservative Edomite, and vice versa. Democratic Edomite versus Republican Edomite, and vice versa, and so forth. Liberal Edomite woman versus conservative Edomite man, and vice versa. There's all kinds of division, confusion, strife taking place in America, Babylon the Great, by the man of war himself, Yahweh. Okay? Yeah. His brother said Amazon gear, shaking my damn head. Yeah, man. You saw it, man. They literally, these devils are literally ordering like ICE-like gear and perpetrating to be ICE agents. So shit is getting out of hand, and we love it, man. More confusion, more destruction. So same brother put up 2nd Ezra 15 and 16. That's through the Spirit. In the GNT says there will be great political turmoil, with one group trying to overpower another and gain control, while ignoring the legitimate government. That's fire. I gotta read that again. 2nd Ezra 15 and 16 in GNT. There will be great political turmoil, with one group trying to overpower another and gain control, while ignoring the legitimate government. You see? So you got the Republicans trying to sway the opinions of the people, by pushing the funding of the federal government, including these federal agents for the most part. Then on the left-hand side, the left-wing side of politics, to the Democrats, you have a lot of them, opposing the funding of these federal agents such as ICE and looking to, push for them to be defunded. While you have similar political parties push for gun reform. And they're all divided on their political stances because it's all part of that division. While they're also ignoring the legitimate government, by rising up against their kings and princes, man. It says in the King James Version. So it's going to further result in complete death and destruction in this place, man. All right. So shalom to you, I can tuning in. And once again, a brother from out there in Jersey. Yahweh's Willing Testament. See the brother Yahweh Sop, hopefully like 777, brother Yahweh Sop on the comment board. Probably sleep by now. Okay. But Yah 144 and assist on the comment board. All right. Shalom once again for tuning in. I pray this lesson was further edifying his order to elect. The water for sticking through with me. I know it was very lengthy. Yeah, man. But I just, like I said, I was meditating on this lesson for about 3 days now. And it was just so much information that I was like, man, I can't just do like that last Civil War lesson that I did. That was supposed to be this lesson, but it was just so much information with a short time span, of so much research, so much information to unravel and organize, that I just decided to just do it today. And Autumn Arthazah came out at this time, or about 3.5 hours ago now. So Autumn Arthazah is further edifying his order to select. I'm going to give all praise and glory, infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom is the God of the living. Going to face the east, give all praise and glory, infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom is the God of the living. Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Baruch Hadash, meaning God praise to the Heavenly Father Yahweh, in the name of His only begotten Son Yahweh Shai and the Holy Spirit, who is our strength and our Redeemer and our light and our salvation. All right, in the same time, I'm utter Mashiach Kabawadium, Laha Sequanium, Shala Gadabarbakab, meaning double honors to the apostles and elder bishops, the great millstone, for teaching, ruling well, and Shalom, honor salutation to Bayashia Vadah, meaning the house of David, of the one-third elect remnant of the nation of Israel, along with the rest of the elect men and women of the children of Israel, scattered across the four corners of the earth. All right. Well, I'm a wath level ball soon, very soon. All right. The water for the precepts. All right. Wa shalom. Kal Akim wa shamar alata la akwath wa barakatam, and on to the next one.